Chapter 180. Although Jianghu Prefecture's business model caused merchants to pay more than other prefectures and prefectures, it saved time and effort. Most importantly, it was safe. As long as you bought smuggled goods from the martial arts forces in Jianghu Prefecture, no one from the Guangzhong torture room would come to investigate you. But if you bought it from someone else, that might not be the case. As a result, Jianghu City attracted more merchants than usual, and the news spread like wildfire. Jianghu City, which wasn't very prosperous before, became twice as prosperous as the other cities within a month. Naturally, the actions of Jianghu Prefecture could not be hidden from others. Jiang Taoran and other constables in Guangxi wanted to learn, but this kind of thing could not be replicated at all. Chu Xiu could use all kinds of methods to suppress all the martial arts forces in Jianghu Prefecture. Even if other inspectors were stronger than Chu Xiu, the strength of their subordinates was also stronger than Jianghu Prefecture. There wasn't even a single expert at the 5 Qis collecting in the origin realm in the martial arts circle under the Jianghu Prefecture, but there were other great clans or great sects in other places. Moreover, they weren't Chu Xiu. There were certain methods that Chu Xiu could use, but they couldn't. A month later, the people that Chu Xiu planted in the major forces had calculated 20% of their profits for this month and sent it to the inspector's hall. The smuggling profits for this month were more than double the previous profits of these families and sections. Now, even if they had to give Chu Xiu 20%, they would still earn. So this time, no one had any complaints. They were even worried that Chu Xiu would kick them out. After all, they weren't the only martial arts influences in the entire Jianghu Prefecture. There were still some small influences. With Chu Xiu's current influence, if anyone was disobedient, Chu Xiu could completely kick them out and then support a small aristocratic family. With Chu Xiu's support, even if that small aristocratic family only had one Xiantian realm martial artist, it would be enough to have a firm foothold in the entire Jianghu Prefecture. In the Great Hall of the Inspector's Hall, boxes were placed in front of Chu Xiu and the others. As the boxes were opened, there were densely packed purple gold, elixirs, minerals, and other hard currencies. Seeing these things, everyone present couldn't help but breathe faster. Even the Ghost Hand King and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society were like this. The Ghost Hand King and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society could be considered to have seen the world, but they had never seen so many treasures in front of them. This was simply more than the profits of a large family. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "Old Du, keep half of these things. Give 20% to our brothers. As for the specific distribution, you can discuss with the Ghost Hand King. Pack the other half for me. I'm going to bring it to the Guangxi branch." Du Guangzhong nodded. He knew who Chu Xiu was preparing these things for. However, it was already very good that his subordinates could get 20%. At the very least, Chu Xiu's generosity was far greater than Fang Zhenyuan's. Fire Slave, Wolf King, and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society also revealed a hint of a smile. When they carried out a big mission in the Blue Dragon Society, they also received a lot of benefits. In total, it was even more than what they were given this time. However, such a big mission was always very difficult. They could only complete it by risking their lives. Now, however, it was much easier. One should know that only Tangya and Yan Bugui had contributed a lot to the annihilation of the two families. Although the others had also contributed, in the eyes of the Fire Slave and the Wolf King, it was just a one-sided massacre. Whether it was the Divine Feathers sect or the Blackcliff Hall, there was simply no one who could fight. They were too weak, so weak that they had no interest in killing them. However, even though killing people was boring, they were still very satisfied with the amount of cultivation resources they could obtain so easily. When they were in the Blue Dragon Society, they were too tense. Apart from killing people, they were also cultivating. As a result, although their combat power was very strong, their cultivation speed could not keep up. Now that they had time to relax and a large number of cultivation resources, they were probably not far from breaking through to the next realm. After giving instructions here, Chu Xiu directly brought the things to the Guangxi branch. At this time, in the Guangxi Punishment Hall branch, Wei Zhuduan directly called Chu Xiu to his study after hearing that he wanted to see him. "Greetings, Lord." Chu Xiu cupped his hands respectfully. Wei Zhuduan played with the dragon pattern iron ball in his hand and looked at Chu Xiu. "I heard about what you did in the Jianghu prefecture. You are quite bold. Previously, you said that the Jiang family used my name to do evil. In the end, aren't you also relying on me to be lawless? Don't you need to give me an explanation for this matter?" Wei Zhuduan's voice was calm, but a faint pressure attacked Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu lowered his head and said, "Of course there is an explanation. I have already asked someone to bring it here. It is just outside the door." Wei Zhuduan gave the order, and immediately, someone carried the large boxes that Chu Xiu had brought into the study, and then immediately left. Chu Xiu opened the boxes one by one, revealing the dazzling purple gold and elixirs that emitted a strong medicinal fragrance. Seeing these things, Wei Zhuduan's expression instantly became amiable, and the pressure also dissipated. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and smiled. "Lord, this is only the first month's income. In the future, the income will only increase. I wonder if Lord is satisfied with this explanation?" Wei Zhuduan smiled and nodded repeatedly. He couldn't help but be satisfied. In the past, among the patrol envoys under him, the one who was the best at making money was Wei Hanshan. The one who gave him the most was also Wei Hanshan. However, no matter how much Wei Hanshan gave Wei Zhuduan, it was just a show of filial piety. If there was something to do, he would give more. If there wasn't, he would give less. He wouldn't be like Chu Xiu, who took out such a large sum of purple gold and cultivation resources to give to Wei Zhuduan every month. Seeing these things, Wei Zhuduan was finally satisfied. It seemed that his decision to protect Chu Xiu was really the right decision. Otherwise, where would these things come from? However, Wei Zhuduan didn't forget to give Chu Xiu a warning. Looking at the things, Wei Zhuduan said indifferently, "Chu Xiu, you are a smart person. You know what you should do and what you shouldn't do. I can protect you from the trouble you caused in the Jianghu prefecture, but don't think that this matter will end just like that. If the higher-ups investigate, it will still be troublesome. You have to act appropriately, understand?" Chu Xiu immediately put on a terrified expression and said, "Yes, this subordinate will solemnly listen to Lord's teachings." Seeing Chu Xiu's attitude, Wei Zhuduan nodded in satisfaction and said, "All right, go back. I can still help you deal with these small matters." Chu Xiu lowered his head and left Wei Zhuduan's study. When he turned around, a look of disdain could be seen in his eyes. This time, Chu Xiu had bled a lot. For a greedy person like Wei Zhuduan, it was necessary to feed him in one go. Otherwise, who knew what kind of tricks he would come up with? Now it seemed that Wei Zhuduan was quite satisfied with the things Chu Xiu offered. However, he still gave Chu Xiu a few warnings out of habit. It seemed that his harsh and ungrateful nature wouldn't change. In reality, when did Chu Xiu need to tell him when to act appropriately? Since Chu Xiu dared to make a move, Chu Xiu knew better than anyone else. The officials would not investigate if the people did not report it. Currently, the entire Jian prefecture was under Chu Xiu's control. Who would dare to make trouble? Therefore, the money Chu Xiu took out was just a protection fee to buy some peace. After returning to the Jianghu prefecture, Chu Xiu directly went into seclusion. Since there was nothing to do inside and outside, he should consolidate his cultivation. Not only Chu Xiu, but Yan Bugui, Tangya, and the other assassins of the Blue Dragon Society also did the same. When they were in the Blue Dragon Society, they usually killed more people than they cultivated. Now that they had changed places and had the conditions, they naturally had to go into seclusion and rest. Du Guangzhong and the other Jianghu constables were happy to see this happen. They couldn't wait for Tangya and the others to stay in seclusion and not fight with them for power. In the process of destroying the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall, they also saw how terrifying these guys from the Blue Dragon Society were, especially Tangya and Yan Bugui. Either one of them could defeat the three of them. Now that the order in the Jianghu prefecture had been completely stabilized, there was almost nothing for Chu Xiu to worry about. Therefore, he also went into seclusion peacefully for more than 2 months. However, at this time, Du Guangzhong suddenly knocked on the door of Chu Xiu's seclusion room, saying that he had something important to report. Du Guangzhong had been a constable in the Guangzhong torture room for so many years. Although he was a little pedantic, he was still very reliable. He could solve most things. Now that Du Guangzhong had come looking for him, it was obviously not a small matter. After stretching his body, Chu Xiu called Du Guangzhong into the study and asked, "What happened? Why are you looking for me in such a hurry?" Du Guangzhong cupped his hands and said, "A small family in the Wen city of the Jianghu prefecture, Lu clan, has been annihilated." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "What's the fuss about a small family being annihilated? Who did it?" It wasn't like Chu Xiu had never seen a family being annihilated. Not long ago, he had even annihilated the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall. As for the local small families in the Jianghu prefecture, it was even more common. As long as they didn't violate the laws of the Guangzhong torture room and didn't affect Chu Xiu's interests, they could do whatever they wanted. At the very least, Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered to care. Du Guangzhong revealed a bitter smile and said, "I don't know. Lu Qingli, Qin Fang, and I have already investigated, but we didn't find anything. That's why we came looking for you." Chapter 181. Hearing that Du Guangzhong and the others had no clue, Chu Xiu was also very surprised. Du Guangzhong and the other veteran constables were far from Tangya and the others in terms of strength, but they were the best in the entire Jianghu in terms of analyzing traces and solving cases. But now that so many people had gone there, they didn't even know who the killer was. This was simply a joke. Chu Xiu thought about it and said in a deep voice, "Go get Ghost Hand King and the others, let's go take a look." It had to be said that Chu Xiu was still a little incompetent as an inspector in some aspects. Apart from killing people, he hadn't learned any of the special skills of the Guangzhong torture room. Du Guangzhong and the others couldn't find any clues, so it would probably be the same if he went. Getting Ghost Hand King and the others here, there was strength in numbers, and they might be able to find something. After getting everyone here, Chu Xiu and the others immediately went to Wen City. In the past, the number one family in Wen City was the Gao family. It was the Gao family that was the first to arrive late at the Phoenix's Cry restaurant. They were severely injured by Chu Xiu on the spot, and were later annihilated by the Luo family. After the Gao family died, no one in Wen City could replace the position of the Gao family. Therefore, the few small forces fought each other, and until now, there was no clear leader. This Lu family was a small force in Wen City. They had an inner strong realm martial artist and more than 10 Xiantian realm martial artists. They weren't too strong, but they weren't too weak compared to the other small families. After stepping into Wen City, Chu Xiu felt that many of the martial artists in Wen City had a look of horror on their faces, as if they had seen a ghost. When they arrived at the Lu family, there were no martial artists that came to watch the show. Only a few constables from the Guangzhong torture room were waiting. Qin Fang and Lu Qingli had gone to the other families in Wen City to inquire about the news. Chu Xiu also noticed that there were a few martial artists from the Luo family standing there with pale faces. One of them Chu Xiu had seen before. It was Luo Xuanxuan, the youngest son of the Luo family's old ancestor. Seeing Chu Xiu arrive, Luo Xuanxuan immediately went up to greet him. "Greetings, official Chu." Chu Xiu asked in surprise, "Why are people from your Luo clan here?" Luo Xuanxuan smiled bitterly. "After the Gao family was destroyed by our Luo family, Wen City was without a master for a while. The Gao family's business was handed over to our Luo family by official Chu, so our Luo family decided to leave some people in Wen City to manage the business. This Lu family is actually one of our Luo family's vassals. They used to work for our Gao family, so I naturally had to come and take a look at what happened. In the end, I don't know who did it. Killing is killing, but it ended up like this. Many of the merchants who came to Wen City ran away. My Luo family's business in Wen City directly halved. Before, Chu Xiu had felt that something was wrong. Those low-level martial artists loved to watch a good show. Even if there were martial artists from the Guangzhong torture room blocking the way, there would still be many people watching. Why was it so quiet here today? Chu Xiu asked Du Guangzhong, "Old Du, what's going on?" Du Guangzhong smiled bitterly. "Official Chu, it's better if you personally take a look. I don't even know how to describe it." Chu Xiu furrowed his brows and led his people into the Lu family. As soon as he opened the door, Chu Xiu smelled a thick stench of blood. And when he entered the Lu family's meeting hall, Chu Xiu felt as if he had stepped into hell. At this time, the entire meeting hall was filled with the corpses of the Lu family members. The heads of these corpses were hung from the roof beams with hemp ropes. The most terrifying thing was that these corpses were all skinned from the neck down. Their stomachs were cut open, and their hearts, livers, spleens, lungs, and kidneys were all plucked out. In the center of the corpses' foreheads, there was a small hole made by a sharp weapon. Their brains were also sucked out. The scene was terrifying to the extreme. It really was like hell. Du Guangzhong said with a pale face, "The Lu family's annihilation was discovered by the local martial artists of one city. No one noticed anything strange with the Lu family overnight. In the end, in the morning of the second day, someone smelled blood from the Lu family's mansion and forced their way in. In the end, they saw this scene. Many people in one city have already seen this scene." Chu Xiu nodded. No wonder the martial artists in one city looked like they had seen a ghost. Even some merchants were scared away. It was not that their ability to accept things was low, but this scene was truly like hell. It was incomparably terrifying. At this time, apart from Chu Xiu, only Yan Bugui and Tang Ye could maintain a normal expression. The methods these two used to kill people were sometimes no less brutal than this scene. It was just that when they killed people, they usually only killed one person. It would not be as spectacular as this hall full of corpses. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Tell me about the situation." Du Guangzhong nodded. "After the local constables of one city informed us, Old Lu, Old Qin, and I directly brought people to check the corpses. These corpses have already been destroyed beyond recognition. It is impossible to tell the cause of death. But the only thing we can be sure of is that they all died of internal injuries. Apart from the wounds after they were skinned and cut open, we did not find any other wounds. And the strangest thing is that we did not find any damage in the meridians of these corpses. This is also a suspicious point. Could it be that the opponent's gang qi could pass through the meridians and directly destroy their internal organs? And then there is their current appearance. Half of their bodies were skinned for some unknown reason. All the organs of the corpses were missing. And the holes on their heads were specially made to extract human brains. Apart from these, there are no other clues. There is not even the slightest trace of a fight. The only thing we can be sure of is that the opponent is very strong. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to silently destroy the Lu family. And there should be quite a number of people. From the knife marks that cut open the abdomen, we can see that the opponent only used ordinary sharp daggers. But from the details, we found that the strength of the people who cut open the abdomen was different. The shape and subtle habits were also different. So there should be many people who cut open the abdomen, at least more than 10 people. That is all for the time being. We have not found anything else." Chu Xiu nodded. It was already not easy for Du Guangzhong to find this out. If it was Chu Xiu himself, he could only see that the opponent was very strong. He probably could not find anything else. After leading the people out of this hell-like meeting hall, Chu Xiu could not help but pinch his chin and ponder. Killing a family in revenge was not something new. If it was just a revenge, Chu Xiu would not even care. But the problem was that this matter did not look like a revenge, but more like some kind of ritual. If it was a revenge, whether it was 1,000 cuts or a car being split in half, all they wanted was a quick death. But now, these Lu family warriors were skinned and their organs and brains were extracted. Obviously, there was another purpose. However, Chu Xiu really did not think of what would need these things in the human body. In the past, the rising star of the Longhu list, Heart Hunter, Tong Kaitai, who was ranked above Chu Xiu, was said to like to cut out the heart of people after killing and swallow it. It was said that he could obtain a part of the power of qi and blood of the other party. Of course, this kind of thing was just a rumor. Anyway, in the eyes of most people, the power of qi and blood of a warrior was condensed in the meridians of the whole body. What was the use of just digging out the heart? And when the person died, the power of qi and blood would directly dissipate, leaving not much in the heart. So for Tong Kaitai's method, most people thought that it was just a perverted hobby of the other party. Glancing at Luo Shuangxuan, who was still a little pale, Chu Xiu rubbed his head. This was really a troublesome matter. When such a thing happened to his subordinates, as the patrol, Chu Xiu had to take care of it. Moreover, it was not a big deal for these people to kill people, but they had to make it so horrifying, scaring away many merchants who came and went. It not only affected the Luo family's business, but also his own income. Chu Xiu said to Du Guangzhong, "Ask Qin Fang and Lu Qingli to investigate the strangers who entered Jianghu prefecture during this time, especially in large numbers." After that, Chu Xiu said to Luo Shuangxuan, "Go back and pass a message to your clan's patriarch. Get him to mobilize the other martial arts factions in the Jianghu prefecture to pay more attention and cooperate with the Guangzhong Discipline Hall's investigation." Luo Shuangxuan nodded repeatedly. If it were any other place, this kind of thing would be Guangzhong torture room's work, and the local martial arts forces would not bother to intervene. But when it was Chu Xiu who had the final say in Jianghu prefecture, other martial arts forces would have to cooperate with him if he asked them to. Especially since this matter had affected the Luo family's business, the Luo family had to try their best to cooperate with Guangzhong torture room to dig out the murderer and settle this matter as soon as possible. Chu Xiu turned his head and said to Ghost Hand King and the others, "You have been in Jianghu for so long, have you ever heard of such a thing?" Yen Bugue was expressionless, Tanya shrugged, Fire Slave and Wolf King also shook their heads. Only Ghost Hand King opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he held it back. Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Ghost Hand King, what do you know?" Ghost Hand King smiled awkwardly and said, "It's just hearsay, and this matter is a little sensitive. I'm afraid that if I say it out, it will mislead everyone." Hearing Ghost Hand King's words, Luo Shuangxuan cupped his hands and said, "Official Chu, you go ahead. I will inform the old ancestor to start the search in Jianghu prefecture." After saying that, Luo Shuangxuan directly left with the Luo family. Although he was also a little curious about what Ghost Hand King wanted to say, he also knew that some things should not be asked, and some things should not be listened to. Otherwise, the consequences would be very miserable. Chu Xiu sent everyone away, leaving only Du Guangzhong, Tanya, and a few other trusted subordinates of the Blue Dragon Society. He entered a study room of the Lu family and asked Ghost Hand King, "Tell me, what exactly is going on?" Ghost Hand King swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "I have heard some similar things in my early years. The hidden story is related to the Kunlun devil cult in the past." Chapter 182. One could not blame the Ghost Hand King for making things so tense. It was indeed very sensitive when it came to the Kunlun devil cult. In Jianghu, the demonic path was not a taboo, but the Kunlun devil cult was the taboo of the taboo. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult swept the world with its demonic flames. Countless righteous sects could only tremble under its demonic might. No one wanted to experience those days again. If it was not for the real martial arts sect's leader, Ning Xuanji, who turned the tide, the righteous path of Jianghu would probably still be struggling under the demonic might. Hearing the words Kunlun devil cult, Chu Xiu's expression was a little strange. This was the path he had to take in the future. He did not expect to come into contact with it now. "You mean, the person who attacked this time is a remnant of the Kunlun devil cult?" Although it had been 1,000 years since the collapse of the Kunlun devil cult, people related to the Kunlun devil cult of the past could still be found in Jianghu. There were even inheritances left behind by the Kunlun devil cult of the past. Once such an existence was discovered, it would be immediately annihilated by those large sections. The Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "It is not a remnant of the Kunlun devil cult. It is a remnant of the Ghost King sect, one of the vassals of the Kunlun devil cult. In the past, the Kunlun devil cult's demonic flames were monstrous and oppressed the world. Those righteous sects could only be careful and keep a low profile. However, many of the demonic sects were willing to submit to the Kunlun devil cult and be at their beck and call. However, with the disappearance of Dugu Weiwei after the battle with Ning Xuanji, the Kunlun devil cult completely fell apart. The righteous sects joined forces to attack the Kunlun devil cult and destroyed it. Those vassal sects were also hit. Among these vassal sects, there were some loyal sects who chose to live and die with the Kunlun devil cult, but most of them chose to escape. For such a sect, the righteous path of Wulin could not be bothered to waste energy to hunt them down, but there were some evil path sects that had committed heinous sins that must be exterminated, and this Ghost King sect was one of them. The people of the Ghost King sect were sinister and cunning. They were the first to defect from the Kunlun devil cult when they saw that things were not right, but in the end they were also hunted down by the good faction Wulin for many years and almost disappeared from the Jianghu. The Ghost King sect's methods were sinister and evil. One of the best was to refine pills using human bodies, using all kinds of bloody methods to refine human bodies into pills, absorbing the Yin energy and refining Yin ghosts. It was said that in the Ghost King sect there was a type of pill called 5-cheese unification pill. Its use was to assist in training and could also be used as medicine to heal the injuries of the 5-cheese unification realm warriors. The name sounded normal, but in fact it was extremely strange. Among the 5-cheese, the heart contained the spirit and belonged to fire, the liver contained the soul and belonged to wood, the spleen contained the will and belonged to earth, the lung contained the soul and belonged to metal, and the kidney contained the essence and belonged to water. This 5-cheese unification pill was made from the fresh heart, liver, spleen, lung, and kidney of the warriors, and medicinal materials of the 5 attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Now, the warriors of the Lu family had their 5 internal organs taken away, so I couldn't help but think of the Ghost King sect. Moreover, their brains were taken away and their skin was skinned, which was the style of the Ghost King sect in the past. Also, the Ghost King sect used the Yin energy to refine Yin ghosts, which was a unique secret technique of the Ghost King sect. The Yin ghosts killed people without a trace. Arrestor Du said that those people of the Lu family had no external wounds, and there was no trace of upstanding qi entering their bodies. This could be done by using Yin ghosts to kill people. The Ghost Hand King said so much in one breath, and everyone present was digesting the information. At this time, Chu Xiu suddenly asked, "Ghost Hand King, everyone here is one of us, so you don't need to hide it. These things, I'm afraid, are not as simple as hearsay." In the past, some things related to the Kunlun demon sect had always been taboo. It was the same for the Ghost King sect. At the very least, these people here had never heard of the name of the Ghost King sect. Yet, the Ghost Hand King knew about it so clearly. If this matter was just heard from hearsay, wouldn't it be a little too fake? The Ghost Hand King smiled bitterly. Since he had already said it, he did not intend to hide it from everyone. The Ghost Hand King sighed and said, "Official Chu guessed right. In fact, I used to be a disciple of the Ghost King sect, but I was a disciple who was deceived. In the early years, I was just a trickster who traveled in Jianghu. I accidentally saved a seriously injured Devil Path warrior, who was a member of the Ghost King sect. He said that he wanted to take me as a disciple, but in fact, he wanted me to temporarily help him do things, and after he recovered, he prepared to swallow my blood essence and kill me. Later, his intentions were discovered by me, so I secretly poisoned his medicine and killed him. Because he was lying to me from the start, he never intended to take me in as a disciple, so he did not pass down some of the Ghost King sect's secret techniques to me, only some ordinary techniques. Regarding the Ghost King sect's matters, I also heard it from his mouth, but it was just some minor details, not the main things." Chu Xiu nodded his head in understanding. According to what the Ghost Hand King said, the person who did it could really be someone from the Ghost King sect, but the person's strength should not be too strong. The use of the 5-cheese unification pill was used to heal the injuries of the masters of the 5-cheese unification realm, so Chu Xiu estimated that there should be a master of the 5-cheese unification realm among the remaining members of the Ghost King sect, but they should be injured. It could be seen from the target they chose. The Lu family was a small family with only a cultivator in the inner aura realm. If the other party had the strength to crush them, then the other party should have attacked martial arts forces like the Luo family with masters of the 3-flower realm at one's prominence. However, at the moment, he had no clue what the Ghost King sect was, so Chu Xiu could only temporarily order his subordinates to pay attention. The next few days were peaceful, but on the 7th day, another small force in the Jianghu prefecture was destroyed in the same way as the Lu family. Before Chu Xiu could react, 2 days later, there was also a massacre in the Shangzhou prefecture, which belonged to Wei Hanshan, next to the Jianghu prefecture. 3 consecutive massacres, all using the same method, was enough to prove the previous speculation of Chu Xiu and the others. Moreover, the impact of these 3 massacres was not small. The martial arts forces in the Jianghu prefecture also knew that such a group of ruthless villains and thieves had appeared in the local area, and they were all jittery. Moreover, the number of merchants coming and going to the Jianghu prefecture had decreased a lot. After all, there were many places in the entire Guanxi area that could be traded, and no one wanted to stay in such a dangerous place. In the Jianghu prefecture inspector hall, Chu Xiu's face was gloomy. He was the one who lost face when a major case happened in his territory that he could not solve. The appearance of the remaining members of the Ghost King sect had seriously affected the business of the Jianghu prefecture. The other martial arts forces could not make money, and the one who suffered losses was Chu Xiu himself. There are so many Jianghu detectives in the inspector hall, and the cooperation of the local martial arts forces in the Jianghu prefecture, but there are no clues? Du Guangzhong said helplessly, "Of course there are clues, but the other party's methods seem to have scared the brothers under me. When there are fewer people, even if there are clues, they do not dare to go. When reinforcements are called, the other party has disappeared." The Ghost Hand King suddenly laughed strangely and said, "Constable Du, since your men do not dare to go, how about leaving it to my men?" "Don't worry, none of my men are afraid of death." Du Guangzhong snorted coldly and said, "Leave it to you? If I leave it to you, I'm afraid you won't even be able to find a trace, let alone find the person." The Ghost Hand King and the other assassins from the Blue Dragon Society still had some friction with the martial artists from the Guangzhong torture room, and both sides were competing with each other. Previously, the Ghost Hand King and the others had shown extraordinary talent when they slaughtered the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall, suppressing Du Guangzhong and the others. Now, the investigation of the traces of the Ghost King sect and the others was fully handled by Du Guangzhong and the others, while the Ghost Hand King and the others could only assist from the side. Every profession had its own specialization. If the Ghost Hand King and the others were in charge of this matter, they probably wouldn't be able to find any traces at all. Chu Xiu frowned and waved his hand, saying, "All right, stop arguing. I will personally take action next time. As long as they are still in the Jianghu prefecture, we don't have to worry about not being able to dig them out. Moreover, even if we can't find them, we will force them out of the Jianghu prefecture." The remnants of the Ghost King sect didn't come for the Jianghu prefecture. Their arrival in the Guangzhong region seemed to be very sudden, and they were in a hurry to kill and refine pills to recover their strength. Previously, Chu Xiu's investigation might have pushed them a little too hard, which led them to go to the Shangzhou prefecture and make a move again. This time, Chu Xiu personally took action. If he could completely force the other party to Wei Hanshan's side, it would be good. At that time, Wei Hanshan would be in a terrible situation. As for what this group of remnants of the Ghost King sect would do, it was none of Chu Xiu's business. He had never been a person who liked to meddle in other people's business. 3 days later, in the Jianghu prefecture's riverside city, the pedestrians and cultivators on the streets were sparse. It was far from the bustling city of the past. Riverside City was only a small city, and it was next to the Shangzhou prefecture. As a place one had to pass between the two prefectures, Riverside City used to be relatively prosperous. At the very least, there was an endless stream of merchants coming and going. In the end, because of the 3 consecutive massacres, one of which involved the Xiangzhou prefecture, Riverside City, which was a place one had to pass between the 2 prefectures, was a little more miserable. The number of merchants and cultivators that came and went decreased by more than half. At this time, outside an open-air tavern in Riverside City, a group of Jianghu people was drinking and chatting. One of the cultivators wearing a short martial arts suit sighed and said, "Damn it, this business is getting harder and harder. I don't know which bastard is so ruthless to destroy 3 sects in a row. No one comes to the huge Riverside City anymore." This cultivator was an escort, but he didn't come from an escort agency. Instead, he was a local tyrant who was in charge of short-distance escorts between the various small cities. Rather than saying that he was protecting the goods, it was better to say that he was a guide. As he was familiar with the martial arts forces and situations of the various small cities, he could lead the way and answer the questions of the merchants, so that they wouldn't offend someone they shouldn't when they first arrived. Now that there were fewer merchants coming and going, his business had also decreased. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the time to drink and brag here. Chapter 183. Among the martial artists chatting and bragging in the taverns of Linjiang City, most of them were at the bottom of the pugilistic world. There were only a few at the blood condensation realm, and most of them were only at the body tempering realm. Hearing the escort complain about the 3 recent massacres, one of them couldn't help but tease, "Old Wang, you better be careful these days. It's best if you treat us to a few drinks. Otherwise, we'll report you to the constables of the pugilistic world, saying that you're slandering official Chu." Old Wang immediately glared and said, "Bullsh*t. How can you guys slander someone's innocence? When did I slander official Chu?" That person laughed and said, "Just now, you were the one who said that the people who massacred 3 sects were bastards. Don't forget that when official Chu first took over the Jianghu prefecture, he also massacred the Divine Feathers sect and the Black Cliff Hall. Also, Nan City's Gao clan was indirectly destroyed by official Chu. Doesn't that mean that he massacred 3 sects?" Old Wang snorted coldly and said, "Don't argue. You know which 3 massacres I'm talking about. Also, don't go around talking nonsense about official Chu. Otherwise, don't blame me for falling out with you." Although Chu Xiao had only been in the Jianghu prefecture for less than a year, his influence far surpassed that of the past inspectors. These martial artists at the bottom of the pugilistic world were all like this. They didn't have a good impression of the major sects and aristocratic families, and they didn't have a good impression of the Guangzhong torture room either. Of course, to them, as long as someone was stronger than them, they wouldn't have a good impression of that person. However, most of the martial artists at the bottom of the pugilistic world dreamed of joining the major sects or being chosen by the Guangzhong torture room to become constables. In the past, the inspectors didn't have much prestige in the Jianghu prefecture, so the people at the bottom of the pugilistic world mocked and ridiculed them as much as they wanted. It was fine as long as the other party wasn't in front of them. With Chu Xiu's influence in the Jianghu prefecture, even though he knew that they were joking, Old Wang still felt a little nervous. The other martial artists seemed to sense that they had gone too far with the joke and didn't continue speaking. Someone continued, "You guys don't say. I've also heard of a piece of news. The group of people who exterminated the family are actually not human. If it's not a human, what else can it be? Could it be a ghost?" Wang Laosan asked casually. The man sneered and said, "You don't say, it might really be a ghost. I have a friend in Wen City who has seen the tragic state of the Lu family. Being skinned alive, having his head pierced through, and having his stomach cut open and his organs dug out, was this something a human could do? He's practically an evil spirit, all right?" Wang Laosan took a sip of wine and said disdainfully, "So what if it's a ghost? Could the Guangzhong torture room go to the Jianghu cult or the Taoist master mansion of Longhu Mountain to invite a Taoist priest to draw a talisman? Furthermore, this group of people are definitely evil cultivators. The patrol hall has already issued a reward. Anyone who reports traces will be rewarded with 10 taels of purple gold. If you can capture one of them, even if it's just an existence below the innate realm, there will be a reward of 1,000 taels of purple gold. Since the patrol hall dares to put up such a huge bounty, then they must have some clues to follow. During this period of time, brothers, pay attention and see if there are any outsiders. If you find any traces of them, there will be a bounty of 10 taels of purple gold. TSK, that's purple gold. I've never seen what purple gold looks like in my entire life. As he spoke, Wang Laosan subconsciously looked around. In the past, the people coming and going in Linjiang City were all merchants. After all, this was a location that connected two prefectures. Hence, there were many outsiders and it was really difficult to find them. However, there were a lot fewer people in Linjiang City now. Some unfamiliar faces were still very obvious in the eyes of a local tyrant like Old Wang. And at this moment, Old Wang suddenly saw a strange person shrouded in a black robe walking out of the pharmacy across the street. He couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. The land of Guanzhong was a mix of good and bad people. There were people from the Three Kingdoms, people from beyond the Great Wall, and people from the western regions. It wasn't strange for them to wear all kinds of strange clothes. However, at this moment, Old Wang and the others were still discussing the evil cultivators who destroyed the three families. They wanted to pay more attention to strangers. Naturally, he also subconsciously focused his attention on the other party. At this moment, the strange person in the black robe also noticed Old Wang's gaze. He suddenly raised his head and his eyes were actually suffused with a sinister blood-red color. The two people's gazes met. Old Wang thought of something and couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. And the strange person in the black robe saw the fear in Old Wang's eyes. His scarlet eyes revealed a thick murderous intent. Run! Wang Laosan screamed and turned to flee. At this moment, he was also secretly blaming himself for having to look at the other party. In the end, he caused such a fatal disaster. The other warriors in the tavern hadn't reacted, but the strange person in the black robe had already made a move. The earth energy around his body was like a black fog. Almost in an instant, his figure appeared in front of the tavern as if he had teleported. The black fog under his feet also condensed into the shape of a ghost claw, grabbing at Old Wang. A cold aura came from behind. Old Wang suddenly felt his body stiffen. He could only stay where he was and wait for death. For a low-level warrior like him, he could only be said to be a vagrant. In the eyes of those experts, there was almost no difference between him and an ant. But at this moment, a dazzling crimson saber light suddenly fell and directly cut the ghost claw. Dressed in black, Chu Xiu stood beside the strange person in the black robe with a crimson-red sleeve saber in his hand. His powerful aura was almost condensed into a substance, making it hard for people to breathe. In the eyes of these low-level warriors in the Jianghu, there were only two things they could see at this time: Chu Xiu and Chu Xiu's saber. Official Chu. The low-level warriors in the Jianghu hurriedly bowed to greet him. When they thought of how they had joked about Official Chu before, they trembled a little. But at this time, Chu Xiu didn't care about what these low-level warriors thought. He just stared coldly at the strange person in the black robe and said, "You rats are really good at hiding. Why is it only you now? Where are the others?" The strange person in the black robe looked at Chu Xiu with scarlet eyes and said in a hoarse voice, "Jianghu Prefecture Inspector Chu Xiu? Let me give you a piece of advice. You'd better not meddle in our affairs. We will naturally leave Guanzhong after a while. If you insist on meddling in other people's business, you can't bear the consequences." A cold smile appeared at the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth and he said, "The remnants of the Ghost King's sect have been chased by those righteous sects like stray dogs, and you dare to speak so ruthlessly in front of me? Do you really think that the Guanzhong torture room is made of mud? You don't know what you are talking about." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu directly slashed out with his saber. The refined blood divine shield suddenly burst out, and the dazzling saber light cut across the sky. A thick blood aura suddenly erupted. The warrior from the Ghost King's sect was first shocked because Chu Xiu had called out his origin. Then, when he saw the Gang Chi with the thick blood aura when Chu Xiu attacked, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Refined blood divine shield." The Blood River sect was a major demonic sect in the past. The Refined Blood Divine Shield was so famous that others might not know about it, but demonic sects must have heard of it. However, the warrior from the Ghost King sect then sneered. So what if he knew the Refined Blood Divine Shield? No matter how strong the Gang Chi was, he was only at the physical invulnerability realm, while he himself had reached the realm of 3 flower at one's prominence. This group of people from the Ghost King sect had stayed in the Jianghu prefecture for a long time and had even killed 2 sections. Naturally, they had heard some rumors about the Jianghu prefecture. At present, the most famous person in the Jianghu prefecture was Chu Xiu. That was why the warrior from the Ghost King sect could call out Chu Xiu's identity. No matter how strong Chu Xiu was, he was only at the physical invulnerability realm. In the Jianghu prefecture, no one could do anything to them. In the Guangzhong area, they only attacked the forces of Jianghu and tried their best not to provoke the Guangzhong torture room. But now that the people from the Guangzhong torture room had come to their door, they could not blame them for being ruthless. The black Gang Chi condensed into a ghost claw, directly holding Chu Xiu's knife in it. The Refined Blood Divine Shield suddenly burst out, barely crushing the ghost claw. However, at this time, a strong corrosive evil force directly penetrated into Chu Xiu's red sleeve knife, staining the crimson blade with a layer of black. The warrior from the Ghost King sect laughed strangely. His figure was like a ghost, faintly discernible and formless. He actually appeared in front of Chu Xiu, black fog swirling around his body. His palm descended, bringing with it a dense ghostly aura that attacked Chu Xiu. His arms hidden in his sleeves were like those of a zombie, showing an unnatural grayish-white color. Moreover, his fingernails were sharp and blood-red, with a deep cold light. Chu Xiu withdrew his knife and formed a seal. In an instant, the golden Gang Chi burst out. The army formula, Great Vajra will seal. At this time, Chu Xiu was like the Buddha's Vajra of the soul formation stage, suppressing demons and punching evil. The Buddha's light shone, illuminating the world. Buddhist seal technique. The warrior from the Ghost King sect screamed as if he had seen a ghost. He wanted to stop, but it was too late. Previously, when he saw Chu Xiu use the Refined Blood Divine Shield, he subconsciously thought that Chu Xiu cultivated a demonic method. Who would have thought that he would turn around and use such a Buddhist seal technique? Although the warrior from the Ghost King sect was in the realm of 3 flower at one's prominence, Chu Xiu's strength was not much inferior to his opponent. Coupled with the restraining effect of the Buddhist technique, when the 2 palms met, the warrior from the Ghost King sect directly screamed. As the Gang Chi exploded, all the nails on his hand broke, and the black mist dissipated. He was also blasted away. There was a hint of coldness in Chu Xiu's eyes. The black mist on the red sleeve knife bloomed, and the power of the 3 blades of Avicii burst out, directly expelling the black Gang Chi of the Ghost King sect warrior. With one slash, the switch from Buddha to devil was extremely natural. Chapter 184. The 3 cuts of Avicii was a crazy martial art, and its power was also extreme. Even the warrior from the Ghost King sect could not help but feel shocked. When Chu Xiu slashed down with his saber, a powerful sinister ghost fog suddenly burst out from behind the Ghost King sect's warrior. An ear-piercing ghost howl rang out and Chu Xiu felt as though a malicious ghost was pouncing towards him. The sinister and cold aura seemed to be devouring his life force. At that moment, Chu Xiu formed the Zhe formula with both hands, and a hazy and mysterious aura enveloped his body, resisting the evil and strange power. The Zhe formula, the inner lion's seal, focused on recovery, and was invincible. In the face of this kind of spiritual attack, the defensive ability of the inner lion's seal was stronger than that of Duga's seal. Moreover, Chu Xiu himself had also cultivated the soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth. His mental strength was extremely strong, and his defensive ability against this kind of power was also stronger. However, when Chu Xiu blocked the attack, the figure of the Ghost King sect warrior was already gone, which made Chu Xiu's face suddenly gloomy. At this time, the Ghost Hand King, Du Guangzhong, and the others in the distance also hurried over and asked, "Sir, did you stop that person?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "The other party is a warrior in the Three Flowers at One's Prominence realm. It is not easy to stop him in a head-on battle. Moreover, the other party has mastered all kinds of strange methods. I was caught off guard and let him escape. By the way, Ghost Hand King, what is the ghost technique of the Ghost King sect? Is it really a ghost?" Thinking of the evil scene in the ghost fog just now, even Chu Xiu could not tell whether that thing was a real evil ghost or not. The Ghost Hand King shook his head and said, "I am not too sure. This ghost secret technique is a secret of the Ghost King sect. I only found out a little bit. According to my understanding, the Yin ghosts raised by the Yin ghost secret technique are actually a part of one's own spirit. Warriors at the Three Flowers at One's Prominence realm had reached the pinnacle of spirit, qi, and spirit. The evil ghost was a part of their own spirit that had been stripped out and refined with evil ghost qi day and night. It had become an invisible and intangible ghost that could affect one's spirit and kill without leaving a trace. Therefore, only those who had reached the Three-Flower realm were qualified to cultivate the Yin ghost secret technique. Legend has it that when the Yin ghost secret technique is cultivated to the great accomplishment, it can turn from illusion to reality and become a ghost soldier, ghost general, or even a ghost king. I don't know whether it's true or not." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "All right, I got it. Let's hurry up and investigate. It's not like we didn't gain anything this time. At least we know what these people from the Ghost King sect want to do. From now on, we'll keep an eye on the medicine shops in each prefecture." Interrogating the medicine shops was also a whimsical decision of Chu Xiu. Since the Ghost King sect needed 5 internal organs and herbs of 5 attributes to refine the 5 Qi spirit elixir, if the other party did not have enough resources, they would definitely come to the medicine shops to buy. Therefore, in the past few days, Chu Xiu had been going back and forth to investigate the medicine shops in the small cities of Jianghu Prefecture. Sure enough, he found some clues. However, it was enough for one person to purchase medicinal materials, so Chu Xiu only found one person this time. In the end, he did not succeed in making the other party stay. At this time, Du Guangzhong said, "By the way, Master, just now there was a message from the branch of Guanxi Torture Hall. They said that they want you to go there. It should be about the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Chu Xiu frowned and said, "Has this matter already alerted the Guanxi branch?" Chu Xiu was a little reluctant to make things too big. Moreover, he wanted to drive the person to Wei Hanshan's side. Now that this matter had alarmed the Guanxi branch, things were a little out of Chu Xiu's control. "You guys continue to search here. Old Du, come with me to the Guanxi branch." Now, if Chu Xiu went out in Guangzhong, he liked to bring 2 people with him the most. One was the Ghost Hand King, and the other was Du Guangzhong. When the Ghost Hand King was in the Blue Dragon Society, he helped the Heavenly Sin branch leader deal with some of the chores in the branch. He had done more than the Heavenly Sin branch leader, so it could be said that he was very experienced and prudent. Du Guangzhong was about the same. Although he was a little pedantic, he could be said to be a veteran constable in the Guangzhong torture room. He was very familiar with this aspect, and bringing him along could also save a lot of effort for Chu Xiu. By the time Chu Xiu arrived at the Guanxi branch, the rest of the inspectors had already arrived. Guanxi branch now had a total of 6 inspectors, including Chu Xiu. In addition to Wei Hanshan and Jiang Taoran, the other 3 were Yingzhou Inspector Fang Hua, Linzhou Inspector Situ Xing, and Anzhou Inspector Kai Jingsheng. Among these 3, Kai Jingsheng and Situ Xing were the oldest. They were already old people in the Guangzhong torture room and had the cultivation of 5 qis collecting in one's body. Fang Hua, on the other hand, was at the 3-flower gathering in one's prominent stage. At this time, when he saw Chu Xiu come in, Fang Hua was the first to smile and say, "Official Chu has set good rules in Jianghu. The monthly income is really envious of us." Although Chu Xiu had brought a prohibited matter like smuggling to the surface, which was a little blatant and suspicious, in fact, this matter was tacitly acknowledged by the entire Guangzhong torture hall. Everyone's salary was so little, if they didn't find some extra money, what would they eat and drink? In any case, now Wei Jiuduan tacitly approved this kind of behavior. As long as Wei Jiuduan was still the torture officer, no one would care about this kind of thing. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Official Fang, please don't make fun of me. You are in charge of 2 prefectures, how can your income be lower than my Jianzhou?" Fang Hua smiled bitterly and said, "It can't be compared. My 2 prefectures are the closest to the land of West Chu. Some of the local martial arts forces are also from West Chu. Those West Chu barbarians have a very violent temperament. I can't afford to provoke them and I can't afford to fight them. I am very sullen as an inspector." Fang Hua complained here. In fact, if half of what he said is true, it's already not bad. Guanzhong is the Guanzhong of Guanzhong torture room. As long as the inspector doesn't act like the previous inspector, Fang Jingyuan, who was too pedantic and excessive and offended his own subordinates and the outside world, in theory, he can still be considered to be relatively comfortable. The martial arts forces under him will at least respect the people of Guanzhong torture room on the surface. During the new year, they will also show their filial piety. Of course, if they want to be like Chu Xiu and be the sole ruler of Jianzhou torture room, it's basically impossible. At this time, Sita Xing also nodded and said, "Just like what official Fang said, our Guanzhong torture room has become more and more difficult to manage in recent years. The local martial arts forces are getting stronger and stronger. If we are too strong, it's very easy to cause problems. Official Chu, you can use such a short period of time to subdue the Jianghu forces under your command. This method also makes us old guys admire you very much." Previously, when the Guanxi branch's patrol envoys had met, people like Sita Xing and Kai Jingsheng, who were veterans of the Guanxi branch and had reached the 5 Qis origin realm, naturally wouldn't speak much to a junior like Chu Xiu, even though their positions were the same. But as Chu Xiu completely established his foundation in Guanxi, made Wei Hanshan disgraced, and even planned a new order in Jianzhou torture room, making the whole Jianzhou torture room submit to him. If they were placed in Chu Xiu's current position and strength, none of them have the confidence to do what Chu Xiu did. So until this moment, everyone really regarded Chu Xiu as a colleague, as an existence that can be treated as an equal. They chatted here for a while. At this time, Jiang Taoran also came in and chatted with everyone. Wei Hanshan was the last to arrive. During this period, Wei Hanshan did not have a good time. Not only was he punished by Wei Jiuduan in front of everyone, but his Qinzhou torture room was also taken away by Wei Jiuduan and given to Jiang Taoran. These were all losses on the surface. Behind the scenes, Wei Hanshan's reputation in the Shangzhou prefecture had plummeted. The local forces of the pugilistic world all thought that he had completely fallen out of favor with Wei Jiuduan. They even looked down on him. During this period, Wei Hanshan did not cause trouble for Chu Xiu, not because he did not bear a grudge against Chu Xiu, but because he had a lot of troubles on his hands. How could he have the leisure to cause trouble for Chu Xiu? Wei Hanshan walked into the meeting hall. Without saying a word, he directly glared at Chu Xiu and snorted coldly, "Chu Xiu, the strength of your Jianzhou torture room is too weak. You can't even catch those evil cultivators, and in the end, you even implicated my Shangzhou torture room. What kind of patrol are you?" This time, Wei Hanshan could really be considered an undeserved disaster. At the beginning, the people from the Ghost King's sect had appeared in Jianzhou torture room. It was because of Chu Xiu's pursuit that they were forced to the direction of Shangzhou torture room. This also caused the people from the Ghost King's sect to attack in Shangzhou torture room. However, Chu Xiu naturally would not say this out loud. He only coldly asked, "Wei Hanshan, don't forget who you are. No matter how incompetent I am as a patrol, Lord Wei will naturally reprimand me. Who do you think you are, to have the right to make irresponsible remarks here? Or do you, Wei Hanshan, think that Lord Wei is already old, so you want to replace Lord Wei and exercise the authority of the penal officer?" As soon as these words came out, Sita Xing and Kai Jingsheng's expressions did not look good. They did not have a good impression of Wei Hanshan either. The two of them were the most powerful among the patrols, but they were also the oldest. Their strength had already reached a period of decline, and it was basically impossible for them to sit in the position of penal officer. According to the rules of the Guanzhong torture room, once Wei Zheduan stepped down as penal officer, either the Guanzhong torture room would send the leader of the punishment bureau to take over the position, or they would directly select and groom the patrols in Guanzhong. It did not matter if one's strength was insufficient. The most important thing was ability and potential. After all, it was better for the position of penal officer to be held by someone familiar with the situation. Therefore, there were only a few people in the Guanxi branch who met the requirements, and Wei Hanshan was one of them. Before Chu Xiu came, Wei Hanshan's actions were already very high profile and arrogant, which made Sita Xing and the others somewhat dissatisfied. In the end, his words really sounded like Wei Zheduan was reprimanding them, which made them very uncomfortable. Chapter 185. Feeling the unfriendly gazes of the others, Wei Hanshan quickly shouted, "Chu Xiu! Don't misinterpret my words. In any case, you didn't solve the problem in your own territory and instead implicated the other inspectors. This is a problem of your ability. I will definitely go to Lord Wei Zheduan and talk about this matter." At this time, Wei Zheduan's voice suddenly came from behind Wei Hanshan. "All right, I heard it. You don't need to say anything, just take care of your own matters. You don't need to worry about other people's matters." Seeing Wei Zheduan arrive, Wei Hanshan immediately calmed down. He didn't dare to say anything and obediently returned to his seat. Wei Zheduan sat on the host's seat and said, "I'm sure all of you have heard about the massacre in Jian province and Shang province. This matter can't be blamed on you. This is because the villains who did this have a great background. They were the vassals of the former Kunlun devil cult, the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Other than Chu Xiu, who knew about the background of the Ghost King sect, it was the first time the others had heard of this matter. This caused their expressions to change slightly. In the past, the Guanzhong torture room had dealt with these Devil Dao villains and even killed a lot of them. However, the majority of the Devil Dao villains killed by the Guanzhong torture room were rogue cultivators or from small sections. Now that the Ghost King sect, a famous Devil Dao sect from 1,000 years ago, was implicated, everyone was shocked. Although the Ghost King sect was no longer a sect, only some of its remnants were still wandering in the Jianghu. Wei Zheduan said, "This time, the Ghost King sect's remnants were chased by the Sword King city's experts to the Guanzhong Pass. It just so happens that the Sword King city's people have also come. When the time comes, we will work together to eliminate the Ghost King sect's remnants." After saying that, Wei Zheduan had his disciple, Ong Ling, invite the Sword King city's people over. When Chu Xiu heard this, a strange look flashed in his eyes. The Ghost King sect was actually forced to come here by the people of Sword King City. When did the two sides become enemies? Sword King City was one of the 5 great sword sects in the 5 swords dividing the world in the Jianghu song. It was located in the Western Desert and was also known as Western Desert Sword King City. There weren't many people in Sword King City, but those who were qualified to roam the world were all elites among their peers. In this generation, Sword King City even had 2 people on the Longhu list. It could be said that the city was extremely glorious. After a while, Yang Ling brought over a dozen warriors from Sword King City. These warriors all had very distinct characteristics. They wore large white robes and wrapped their heads with white headscarves. This was a common attire for the people of the Great Western Desert. The most eye-catching thing was that their swords were not carried on their backs, strapped to their waists, or placed in their secret space boxes. Instead, they were always holding them in their hands. It was said that the warriors of Sword King City had always been like this. They regarded the swords in their hands as their own arms. If they wanted to reach the realm of one with the sword, they wouldn't let go of their sword even when they were eating or sleeping. As soon as they entered, everyone could feel a powerful sharp intent coming from the Sword King City's cultivators. Even if their swords weren't unsheathed, the astonishing sword intent was cutting through space and exerted great pressure on everyone present. Chu Xiu and the others exchanged glances and frowned. This group of Sword King City's cultivators was too arrogant. Even the weakest among them was at the Xiantian realm, while the strongest had even reached the Five Qis unification realm. It was very easy for cultivators at this level to restrain their imposing aura, yet these people were still putting on such airs. Who were they trying to show off their arrogance? Among the 5 great sword sects, Sword King City was indeed the strongest. It dominated the Western Desert. It was said that the Western Desert also had some small countries in the western regions. When Sword King City established itself there, those small countries would submit to it. The warriors of Sword King City could kill the kings of those small countries like slaughtering chickens. But no matter how overbearing they were, this was not the Western Desert. This was the Central Plains, Guanzhong, the Guanzhong torture room that belonged to Guanzhong. However, Wei Jiuduan was here, so he didn't say anything. Chu Xiu and the others also didn't say anything. In the end, Wei Jiuduan just frowned and didn't say anything. He just said to Chu Xiu and the others, "Let me introduce myself. This is an expert from Sword King City, the instructor of War Sword Hall, Flaming River Sword, Gu Lujiang." The leader of Sword King City's group was a cultivator in his 30s. He had a cold expression and held a crimson sword in his hand. He just nodded at Wei Jiuduan's words and didn't say anything. Everyone present raised their eyebrows. Although this fellow was arrogant, his background wasn't simple. Sword King City had 4 major sword halls. The War Sword Hall specialized in sword Dao killing techniques, the Sword Comprehension Hall specialized in the true essence of sword Dao, the Intense Sword Hall specialized in the selfless sword will, and the Form Sword Hall specialized in sword techniques. Among the 4 great sword halls, only the martial artists from the War Sword Hall were the most warlike. Their comprehensive combat strength was also the strongest. Moreover, although this Gu Lujiang wasn't famous in Jianghu, since he was the sword arts instructor of the War Sword Hall, his attainments in swordsmanship should be quite astonishing. Wei Jiuduan pointed to a young cultivator in the physical invulnerability realm and said, "This is a young hero from Sword King City, Wind and Cloud Sword, Lin Kaiyun. I heard that young hero Lin is ranked on the Longhu leaderboard. It just so happens that our Guanxi branch also has a young man ranked on the Longhu leaderboard. Speaking of which, it can be considered fate." Lin Kaiyun only looked to be in his 20s on the outside. His name sounded casual, and his looks were more handsome. However, in reality, there was a thick sharpness in his eyes. His expression was grave and stern, and one could tell that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Hearing Wei Jiuduan say that the Guanzhong torture room also had someone ranked on the Longhu leaderboard, Lin Kaiyun couldn't help but frown and say, "Since when did the Guanzhong torture room have someone ranked on the Longhu leaderboard? Who is it?" Wei Jiuduan pointed at Chu Xiu and said with a smile, "It's my patrol inspector, Chu Xiu. He recently joined the Guanzhong torture room." After hearing Chu Xiu's name, Lin Kaiyun's eyes suddenly flashed with sharpness, as sharp and piercing as a sword intent. "You are Chu Xiu? The blood demon Chu Xiu ranked 18th on the Longhu leaderboard?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "That's right." Lin Kaiyun wanted to say something, but Gu Jianglu, who was next to him, pulled him, causing Lin Kaiyun to swallow his words. He just said to Chu Xiu coldly, "If there's time, let's learn from each other." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "If there's time, that's fine. Unfortunately, I'm the Guanxi patrol inspector, and I have a lot of things to do. I'm not as free as young hero Lin." This Lin Kaiyun had revealed such great enmity towards Chu Xiu in public, causing Chu Xiu to feel somewhat baffled. He had not provoked him, and this was even the first time he had met Lin Kaiyun. In the end, Lin Kaiyun was already hostile towards him. Could it be because of his ranking on the Longhu list? However, although the competition on the Longhu leaderboard was fierce, it shouldn't be like this the first time they met, right? In fact, Chu Xiu's guess was right. Lin Kaiyun was so hostile to him because of the Longhu leaderboard. At present, Lin Kaiyun was ranked 21st on the Longhu leaderboard. Before this, he was ranked 20th. It was only because of Chu Xiu's appearance not too long ago that he had jumped to 18th place, pushing everyone down a rank. On the Longhu leaderboard, the top 20 was a step. Chu Xiu's appearance was equivalent to pushing Lin Kaiyun down a ladder. Speaking of which, Lin Kaiyun's obsession with the Longhu leaderboard was because of the internal affairs of Sword King City. Sword King City had produced a large number of heroes of this generation. In fact, Lin Kaiyun's fame wasn't the greatest. When Sword King City was mentioned, everyone would only think of one name, the sword leader, Fang Qishao. The seventh young master Fang was not the seventh young master of the Fang family. The little he referred to was the little, in the sense of how many. Therefore, this became the seventh young master Fang's catchphrase. Every time he introduced himself to others, he would say that his name was the little, in the sense of how many. He started learning the sword at the age of 7 and spent 5 years learning all 4 major training halls. Even the sword instructors of the 4 halls had once said that they couldn't teach Fang Qishao's sword Dao. Aside from his low cultivation level, his understanding of the sword Dao was even higher than their sword instructors. He entered the pugilistic world at the age of 15 and challenged countless sword experts of the same level in 7 years. He had never tasted defeat, and his title of sword leader spread like wildfire. In his life, Fang Qishao had only been defeated by the Dragon Tiger Mountain's little celestial master, Zhang Qingjin. However, that was because his cultivation level was lower. Moreover, it was a glorious defeat for Fang Qishao to be defeated by the talented little celestial master. In the years that followed, Fang Qishao was always ranked 3rd on the Longhu leaderboard. Therefore, Lin Kaiyun was in a more miserable state. It could be said that he had always been living in Fang Qishao's shadow. He was only a few years younger than Fang Qishao and had less experience in the pugilistic world. The first time he entered the Longhu leaderboard, he was only in the 50s. After that, he went into seclusion to cultivate to internal invulnerability. The next time he came out of seclusion, he finally made it to the 20th place. On the other hand, Fang Qishao had already become famous in the pugilistic world. Even when he was defeated by the little celestial master, Zhang Qingjin, he was still praised by the pugilistic world. Lin Kaiyun, who was unwilling to give up, went into seclusion again. This time, he only came out after cultivating to the physical invulnerability stage. In the end, before he could compete with his senior brother from the same sect, he was pushed down a position by Chu Xiu. It would be strange if he had a good expression. Therefore, when he saw Chu Xiu now, he looked as if Chu Xiu owed him a few thousand taels of purple gold. Wei Jieduan felt that the atmosphere in the scene was a little cold. He couldn't help but cough twice and said, "All right, I won't say much. The people from the Ghost King sect dared to disturb my Guanzhong torture room. My Guanzhong torture room will not ignore this matter. My subordinates can cooperate with you, Mr. Gu. With the two of us working together, we can definitely dig out the Ghost King sect's evil demons in the shortest time possible and kill them all." Chapter 186. Just as Wei Jieduan finished speaking, he was suddenly interrupted by Gu Jianglu. Looking at Wei Jieduan, Gu Jianglu spoke in a deep voice, "Lord Wei, you seem to have misunderstood. My Sword King City isn't here to cooperate with your Guanzhong torture room. We are just here to inform you that my Sword King City is going to take action in Guanxi. Cooperation is impossible. My Sword King City has never had the habit of cooperating with others. If your Guanzhong torture room wants to intervene, then just follow behind us and assist us." Previously, no matter how arrogant Gu Jiangliu's group was, or how dissatisfied Chu Xiu's group was, Wei Jieduan didn't say anything. But now, Gu Jianglu was a little too much. This was Guanzhong, and Gu Jianglu actually wanted the Guanzhong torture room's people to assist them. What was this? Did he not put the Guanzhong torture room in his eyes? Wei Jieduan spoke with a gloomy expression, "Mr. Gu, don't forget, this is the Guanzhong torture room." Gu Jianglu spoke indifferently, "I know this is the Guanzhong torture room. If this wasn't the Guanzhong torture room, do you think my Sword King City's people would need to inform you in advance?" Gu Jiangliu's words were overbearing, but it was the truth. Chu Xiu had experienced this before. Back when he was being pursued by the Morgue Manor and the Northern Drifting Snow City, he came to the Azure Wave Sword Sect's territory. As the Azure Wave Sword Sect was too weak, the Morgue Manor and the Northern Drifting Snow City didn't put the Azure Wave Sword Sect in their eyes. They didn't even inform the Azure Wave Sword Sect. This also caused the three factions to be provoked by Chu Xiu's case and finally shed all pretenses of cordiality. With how overbearing the Sword King city was, Gu Jianglu was willing to inform Wei Jiuduan, the Guanxi penal officer. This was obviously giving him face. Moreover, in terms of individual strength, Gu Jianglu didn't put Wei Jiuduan in his eyes. Gu Jianglu looked young, only in his early 30s. In fact, he was indeed very young. His real age was only 40. Wei Jiuduan had cultivated for more than 100 years to reach the realm of the unity of man and nature, while Gu Jianglu had only used more than 20 years to reach the peak of the 5 Qis collecting the origin. It was estimated that it wouldn't be long before the unity of man and nature was just around the corner. When facing Wei Jiuduan, he didn't have the slightest awe. Furthermore, even though Wei Jiuduan still had the cultivation of the unity of heaven and man realm, he was actually very old. If they were to really fight, it was not certain who would win. Chu Xiu and the others were looking at Wei Jiuduan. The Sword King city's people were so overbearing and unreasonable, but Wei Jiuduan didn't say anything. However, Chu Xiu and the others felt that it was a pity that Wei Jiuduan didn't say anything. He just suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a cold voice, "I can cooperate with your Sword King city, but your Sword King city should have some sense of propriety. If you disturb the order in the pass because of your actions, the people from the main hall will naturally come down to deal with you." Seeing Wei Jiuduan make such a concession in front of the Sword King city's warriors, Chu Xiu and the others were somewhat dissatisfied. Wei Jiuduan was too cowardly. In fact, Wei Jiuduan wasn't really a coward. He was afraid of the Sword King city's people. He just didn't want to cause trouble. He knew that he wouldn't be able to stay in the position of the disciplinary officer for many years. In that case, it was better to avoid trouble. He had a conflict with the Sword King city's people. Moreover, the Sword King city's people were famous for being domineering and overbearing in the pugilistic world. If they were to get entangled in a fight, it might cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, he would make a concession as long as it didn't affect his own interests. However, since he made a concession as the superior, Chu Xiu's subordinates naturally couldn't act out. They felt very sullen. Wei Jiuduan said to Yang Ling in a muffled voice, "During this time, you will follow the Sword King city's people. If they have any requests, pass them on to the inspectors. Try to cooperate with them as much as possible." After saying that, Wei Jiuduan turned around and left. Gu Jianglu didn't care. He just asked Yang Ling, who was next to him, where was the last time the Ghost King sect's people were seen. Yang Ling glanced at Chu Xiu and said, "It was in official Chu's Jianzhou prefecture." Gu Jianglu said lightly, "All right, let's go to Jianzhou prefecture now." Yang Ling walked to Chu Xiu's side and said with a smile, "Official Chu, since adoptive father wants us to cooperate with the Sword King city's people, we can only do so. Let's go with them." Chu Xiu frowned slightly. The Sword King city's people came, but they turned out to be people from the Guanzhong torture room. They actually cooperated with outsiders to act in their own territory. They were really cowards. However, since Wei Jiuduan said this, Chu Xiu naturally couldn't refute it. He just said lightly, "Since that's the case, then follow me." After arriving at the Jianzhou Prefecture's Inspector Hall, Chu Xiu said to the Sword King city's people, "We have already noticed the Ghost King sect's people's whereabouts. I also fought with them once, but the Ghost King sect's people's cultivation method is too evil, so they escaped." Hearing up to this point, Lin Kaiyun suddenly sneered and said, "What a joke. You actually let them escape even after finding them. Those people from the Ghost King sect are trash. My Sword King city's people chased them all over the world, yet you actually failed to catch them." Lin Kaiyun said that the Ghost King sect's people were trash, but if they couldn't catch the Ghost King sect's Chu Xiu, wouldn't they be even more trash? Upon hearing this, Chu Xiu's subordinates glared at the Sword King city's people. The Ghost Hand King sneered and said, "Official Chu went to catch a warrior in the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. What's so strange about them escaping? Also, if you people from the Sword King city are capable, you would have wiped out the Ghost King sect a long time ago. Why did you chase them all the way to Guangzhou?" Hearing the Ghost Hand King's words, Lin Kaiyun's eyes suddenly showed a hint of fierceness. He had a bad temper to begin with, and he had just come out of seclusion this time. He wanted to make a name for himself in the world and catch up to his senior brother. However, when he came out of seclusion, he found that his ranking had fallen instead of advancing. Chu Xiu had pushed him out of the top 20. He had been suppressing his anger. Now, even a Jianghu constable from the Guangzhou disciplinary hall dared to mock him. This made Lin Kaiyun's anger immediately surge. He snorted coldly and said, "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to speak here?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Kaiyun flicked out a sharp sword finger, shooting directly at the Ghost Hand King's shoulder blade. He did not intend to kill, but if this extremely sharp sword finger were to hit the Ghost Hand King, one of his arms would probably be crippled. Chu Xiu stretched out his hand and turned it into a knife. The blood-refined divine gang suddenly burst out, shattering the sword finger. He said coldly, "This is Guangzhou, the Guangzhou of the Guangzhou torture room." What, the people of the Guangzhou torture room don't even have the right to speak here? Everyone says that the Sword King city is overbearing, but you people are still so overbearing in the Guangzhou area. Does your sect master know? I don't have the right to speak, but I don't know if Hall Master Guan has the right. Do you need me to report this matter to the headquarters? Lin Kaiyun still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Gu Jianglu, who frowned and said, "Enough, stop fooling around. We came for the Ghost King sect this time." Some of the Ghost King sect's remnants were injured by Uncle Master's sky-burning sword chi, so they can't escape too far. They can only recuperate in the Guangzhou area. We don't have time to waste, or else they might escape to somewhere after they recover. Lin Kaiyun heard this and snorted coldly, not saying anything. Seeing Lin Kaiyun's expression, Chu Xiu also sneered in his heart, not saying anything. No wonder Lin Kaiyun lived under the shadow of Fang Qi Shao all his life. This person was far inferior to Fang Qi Shao. They were both outstanding talents of the younger generation. It was normal to be suppressed by outsiders, but it was indeed a bit sullen to be suppressed by a fellow disciple. But some people could turn this kind of pressure into motivation. Obviously, Lin Kaiyun didn't. He just turned this pressure into anger and resentment. What great achievements could a person who couldn't even control the emotions in his heart achieve in the future? At least in the original plot, Chu Xiu had heard of the name, Sword Leader, Fang Qi Shao, but he had never heard of Lin Kaiyun's name. There were only two endings for this person in the future. Either he was killed halfway, or he would forever live under the shadow of Fang Qi Shao and be unknown. Gu Jianglu looked at Chu Xiu and said in a low voice, "Chu Xiu, Lord Wei said that as long as the Sword King city goes, the Guangzhou torture room should try their best to cooperate, and I won't make things difficult for you. This group of people from the Ghost King sect killed people in your Jianghu prefecture, and it will also affect your Guangzhou torture room. The sooner you get rid of these remnants of evil, the sooner you can be at ease. I don't care what you've done before, but now that the Sword King city's people are here, all you can do is cooperate. Now, transfer your subordinates to me. Listen to our command and cooperate with us to search the prefectures one by one. I don't believe that we can't find any traces of these people from the Ghost King sect." As soon as these words came out, even Du Guangzhou, who had a good temper, couldn't accept it. The Sword King city's people were simply conceited to the point of considering everyone else. When it came to searching for traces and investigating traces, the Jianghu constables from the Guangzhou torture room were naturally the most experienced. But now, the Sword King city's people excluded them and didn't listen to their opinions at all. They made them do odd jobs. This was simply insane. Du Guangzhou and the others also looked at Chu Xiu. No matter how arrogant the Sword King city's people were, they didn't have the final say in this place. At this time, Yang Ling walked to Chu Xiu's side and said in a low voice, "Official Chu, don't cause trouble. Don't forget foster father's instructions. Try to cooperate with the Sword King City's people and smoothly deal with the Ghost King sect. That's the right thing to do. Chu Xiu's expression was gloomy as he said, Old Du, take some people and cooperate with them. After saying that, Chu Xiu turned around and left with the Ghost Hand Monarch and the others. Du Guangzhong and the others shook their heads helplessly. The higher the rank, the higher the rank. Chu Xiu's character was very strong, but what could they do when Wei Jiuduan didn't want to cause trouble? Chapter 187. In the inner hall of the patrol hall, the Ghost Hand Monarch and the others were looking at Chu Xiu's expression. Chu Xiu had a gloomy and angry expression when he was outside, but now that he was back in the inner hall, Chu Xiu was expressionless, only showing a thoughtful expression. After a long time, Chu Xiu suddenly looked up at the Ghost Hand Monarch and asked, How much do you know about Sword King City? The Ghost Hand Monarch was stunned for a moment, but he still replied, I don't know much, most of it is hearsay. Then, do you think Sword King City is a righteous sect with a strong sense of justice? They can disregard their own interests for the sake of exterminating demons. The Ghost Hand Monarch shook his head and said, It's true that Sword King City is a righteous sect, but it's absolutely not to this extent. How can there be any absolute good people in the current society? They were all people who wouldn't do anything without benefits. If everyone really disregarded their own personal interests for the sake of exterminating evil, then the Jianghu's demonic path would have been wiped out long ago. In fact, it can't be said that there are no such sects, but such stubborn sects won't be able to flourish and will most likely die prematurely. A smile appeared at the corner of Chu Xiu's mouth and he said, If that's the case, then it's interesting. Don't you feel that Sword King City's actions are a bit strange? The Ghost King's sect was a devil Dao sect that had completely declined and was on the verge of extinction. Although they had some relations with the Kunlun devil cult, causing them to be cursed by everyone in the pugilistic world, they would at most exterminate the other party after they stepped into their territory. They were not like the Sword King City, who actually sent out their elite experts to pursue them for thousands of miles, as if they had an irreconcilable enmity with the Ghost King sect. But as far as I know, the two sides don't seem to have such deep enmity, right? The Ghost Hand Monarch nodded and said, I haven't heard of this, but the Ghost King sect's people are all lunatics. They like to kill people to refine pills and nurture their own ghosts. What if they kill someone important in Sword King City? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, That's possible, but can you see any hatred in the eyes of Sword King City's cultivators? No, these Sword King City's cultivators want to hunt down the Ghost King sect's people. Their goal isn't revenge, nor is it to exterminate evil. It's as if they are here to complete a mission. This is very interesting. Ghost Hand Monarch scratched his head. He didn't think that far. Previously, he thought that Chu Xiu was going to attack Sword King City. After all, the Chu Xiu he knew wasn't the kind of person who would swallow a loss. The Yu clan of the Northern Mountains, which had been annihilated by Chu Xiu in the past, was proof of that. As long as they offended this person, it did not matter if they died sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, All right, all of you can leave. If Sword King City asks you to search, then do so. There's no need to disobey them. But if you really see the Ghost King sect's people, let Sword King City's people make the first move. Don't rush to your deaths like idiots. Ghost Hand Monarch and the others nodded. There was no benefit in doing so. Even if Chu Xiu didn't say anything, they wouldn't be stupid enough to throw away their lives. After the Ghost Hand King and the others left, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a look of contemplation. He felt that there was something wrong with Sword King City's people. He was also searching for some information about Sword King City in his mind. Chu Xiu was confident in remembering some of the major events in the original plot, but he couldn't remember some of the minor details. During this time, apart from some major events related to Sword King City, the only time and place related to Sword King City was when they seemed to have obtained something related to the Kunlun devil cult. It seemed to have caused some competition, but in the end, nothing came of it. Thinking of Ghost King Sek's origin, Sword King City couldn't possibly have something related to the Kunlun devil cult, right? Perhaps Sword King City didn't want others to know about it, so they sent their disciples to hunt down the Ghost King Sek's people. Even if the other party hid in the Guanzhong torture room, Sword King City still wouldn't let them go. Moreover, judging from Sword King City's attitude, they didn't want to cooperate with Guanzhong torture room. Instead, they put themselves in the main position and only allowed the people from Guanzhong torture room to cooperate. Perhaps it wasn't because they were conceited, but because they didn't want Guanzhong torture room to interfere too deeply in this matter. They had to be the ones to capture and kill people. As for the things, they naturally had to be the ones to bring them back. Kunlun devil cult? Very interesting. Chu Xiu pinched his chin, his eyes flickering with an inexplicable light. In this life, he had already walked a completely different path from the original story. In the end, he could still encounter something related to the Kunlun demon sect. Could this be fate? However, Chu Xiu didn't care about this kind of thing. He was a very realistic person. As long as there were benefits, Chu Xiu wouldn't refuse them, regardless of whether it was a devil sect or a divine sect. But now, he still wanted to see how the people from Sword King City would deal with it. Gu Jianglu and the others' methods weren't out of the expectations of the Guanzhong torture room's experts. Their methods were very crude. Basically, they searched small cities one by one. Moreover, they were led by Sword King City's own people. They didn't give Du Guangzhong and the others any chance to command them. This caused Du Guangzhong and the others to curse inwardly. In the end, they simply gave up and let Sword King City's people do whatever they wanted. In the end, Sword King City's people went back and forth in Jian province for several days without finding any clues. However, the Ghost King Sek's people once again exterminated them. This made the experts of Sword King City furious. At this time, Chu Xiu was sure that Sword King City's people had ulterior motives in hunting down the Ghost King Sek's experts. If they simply wanted to exterminate the devil cult or take revenge, it would be very simple. Chu Xiu could rely on his own strength to find clues. Moreover, he had almost left one person behind. With the power of the entire Guanxi Punishment Hall, Chu Xiu could find all the Ghost King Sek's people in less than 3 days and kill them all. As a result, Sword King City's people were in a very difficult situation. They didn't even have a trace of harvest. In Jian Province's Inspector's Council chamber, Gu Jianglu, who had been running all over Jian Province for several days without any results, directly found Chu Xiu and asked angrily, "Chu Xiu, did your people do this on purpose?" When looking for the remnants of the Ghost King sect, they were all listless and didn't work hard. "Is this how you cooperate with me?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "How else do you want me to cooperate with you, Mr. Gu? I only have less than 300 constables and constables under me. You are bringing them to search one place after another, that is treating the Ghost King sect people as idiots. Won't they run when they hear the news? Also, our Jianghu constables are not used like this. If you let them spread out and act on their own, I dare to guarantee, within 3 days they will be able to dig out the Ghost King sect people's whereabouts for you." Gu Jianglu suddenly frowned. He didn't trust the constables of Guanzhong torture room, so he brought them around as coolies. If he let these constables investigate, they might find something unusual about the Ghost King sect's warriors and report it to the headquarters of Guanzhong torture room, then his efforts would be in vain. Sword King City was indeed not afraid of the Guanzhong torture room, but this was Guanzhong, a place that belonged to the Guanzhong torture room. He might be overbearing in front of Wei Jiuduan, but if he dared to act like this in front of Guan Siyu, even if Guan Siyu crippled him on the spot, the people of Sword King City wouldn't be able to say anything. He didn't even know the difference between superiors and inferiors, so he deserved to die. Just as Gu Jianglu was in a dilemma, Wei Hanshan suddenly walked in and laughed. "Mr. Gu, are you in trouble? I have an idea that can allow Mr. Gu to quickly dig out the remnants of the Ghost King sect." Chu Xiu looked at Wei Hanshan coldly and said, "Wei Hanshan, what are you doing here? Jianghu Prefecture has nothing to do with you." Wei Hanshan chuckled and said, "Although the Jianghu Prefecture is your territory, it also belongs to the Guanzhong Disciplinary Hall." What, a dignified patrol like me doesn't even have the right to enter this place? Gu Jianglu could naturally hear the conflict between Wei Hanshan and Chu Xiu. But he couldn't be bothered to care about it now. He looked at Wei Hanshan and said, "You just said you have an idea? What is it?" Wei Hanshan cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Actually, it's not a good idea. It's just a very simple trick. Most of the Jianghu prefecture is plains, so the Ghost King sect can't hide outside. They can only hide in the city. The more people there are, the safer they are. So as long as we can seal all the cities in Jianghu prefecture at the same time until we find traces of the other party, it will be enough. There are so many martial arts forces in the small cities in Jianghu prefecture, and they can all cooperate with you in Sword King City." After Wei Hanshan said this, Gu Jianglu and the others nodded, feeling that what he said made some sense. But the expressions of Du Guangzhong and the others suddenly changed. This Wei Hanshan was very sinister. This move of his had tricked all the martial arts forces in the Jianghu prefecture, as well as Chu Xiu. What did Jianghu prefecture rely on to make money now? Of course it was the smuggling business. Although there were fewer merchants coming and going because of the Ghost King sect, there were still a lot of people. But if the city was sealed, people from the outside could not get in, and people inside could not get out. At that time, people would be in a panic, and who would be willing to come to Jianghu prefecture to do business? Even if the people from the Ghost King sect were eventually found and successfully eliminated, the Jianghu government's actions would still damage the reputation of the Jianghu government. It could be imagined that in the future, the number of merchants that would come to the Jianghu government would definitely decrease by a large amount. Those martial arts factions would earn less, and naturally, Chu Xiu would earn less. Chapter 188. Wei Hanshan's move was obviously harming others without benefiting himself. He was harming Chu Xiu, and he would not benefit from it. Gu Jianglu nodded and said, "Okay, let's do it." With that, Gu Jianglu waved his hand and led the warriors of Sword King City to carry out the order. After everyone left, Chu Xiu looked at Wei Hanshan and said coldly, "Wei Hanshan, you broke the rules. You have to use outsiders to solve the grievances within the Guangzhong torture room. This is not a good habit." Wei Hanshan snorted and said, "Chu Xiu, thanks to you, the Qinzhou prefecture that I have painstakingly managed for years has been taken away. Why should I care about the rules? Today's matter is just the beginning. Don't think that no one can touch you just because you have a connection with Lord Wei. The waters of the Guanxi region are deep. Sooner or later, you, Chu Xiu, will cry." With that, Wei Hanshan turned around and left. However, at this time, Chu Xiu looked at Wei Hanshan with a deep and cold gaze. "Old Du, what other background does this Wei Hanshan have? Where does this guy get the confidence to say this to me?" Chu Xiu asked Du Guangzhong, who was beside him. He felt that today, Wei Hanshan seemed to have gained some sort of confidence and was very confident. Now that Chu Xiu had completely stabilized his position as patrol, Du Guangzhong had also figured out Wei Jiuduan's character and attitude. This person was harsh and ungrateful, but he was greedy beyond measure. As long as Chu Xiu could bring him absolute benefits, Wei Jiuduan would protect him. Just like Wei Hanshan before Chu Xiu came to Guanxi, Wei Hanshan was the one who could bring the most benefits to Wei Jiuduan. Therefore, he was the most favored one among the patrols. Now, this person had been replaced by Chu Xiu. Thus, before someone who could give Wei Hanshan even more benefits appeared, Chu Xiu's position could not be replaced by anyone else. Du Guangzhong hesitated for a moment before saying, "This subordinate has heard of a rumor that Wei Hanshan is the illegitimate child of the Nine Plains Wei clan, and is even from a branch family. It was only because he was not valued by the Wei clan that he chose to come to the Guangzhong torture room. Moreover, it is said that the Nine Plains Wei clan has secretly supported Wei Hanshan in his current position. Now that Wei Hanshan has suffered a loss at your hands, could it be that Wei Hanshan sought help from the Wei family and obtained some sort of guarantee, which is why he is so confident?" Nine Plains Wei family? Chu Xiu was a little confused. He had never heard of this name. However, Chu Xiu had vaguely heard that Wei Hanshan had some connections in the Guanxi Wulin. Du Guangzhong explained, the Nine Plains Wei clan is a large clan that straddles the Guanxi and Guangdong regions. They are located in the Jiuyuan prefecture at the border of the two regions. The head of the Wei clan has the strength of the 5 cheese collecting in Origin State, which is quite famous in the entire Guangdong region. The fact that the Nine Plains Wei clan could add the name of the region in front of their clan's name was already enough to prove the power of the Wei clan. This was also a custom in the Jianghu. For example, the fluttering snow city of the far north. In the far north, fluttering snow city reigned supreme, which was why it was called the fluttering snow city of the far north. It was the same for the Sword King city of the western desert. For example, the small clans in the Jianghu prefecture, such as the Jiang clan of Qi City and the Gao clan of Wen City, could only be named after their respective cities. None of them dared to call themselves a clan in the Jianghu prefecture. Since the Nine Plains Wei clan could name itself after the entire Jiuyuan prefecture, it was obvious that the Wei clan could be said to be the most powerful clan in the Jiuyuan prefecture. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. If the Nine Plains Wei clan was really behind Wei Hanshan, then this Wei clan was really different from the rest. They really knew how to play. For example, when other martial arts forces faced the Guangdong torture room, their instinctive choice was to resist and be cautious. But this Wei clan chose to support an illegitimate son of their own to enter the Guangdong torture room. Were they preparing to cultivate their own forces? At the moment, Wei Hanshan was just an ordinary inspector. His status was too far away from the Nine Plains Wei clan. But if Chu Xiu was not around, Wei Hanshan was the youngest inspector in the Guanxi region. If he could become a torturer or the head of the arrest department in the future, he would be much more useful. But it was a pity that the Wei clan would not live to see that day. Old Du, secretly order some of your trusted subordinates to investigate the movements of those people from the Ghost King sect. Remember, just investigate their movements and not alert them. Once you find any traces of them, leave immediately and tell me their location, Chu Xiu said in a low voice. Du Guangzhong nodded and did not ask any more questions. He had followed Chu Xiu for some time, so he almost knew Chu Xiu's style of doing things. He only cared about the results, not the process. Now that Chu Xiu had assigned the task to him, he only needed to complete the task Chu Xiu gave him. It would not be good for him to know too much about other things. Just as Chu Xiu was about to take action, Sword King City had already taken action. With Sword King City's strength, they did not take the local small forces in Jianghu City seriously at all. They directly sent a disciple to inform them to immediately send people to seal the city and search the whole city. This overbearing action caused an uproar among the martial arts forces in Jianghu City. They did not dare to resist. Therefore, one day after the city was sealed, the martial arts forces in Jianghu City immediately joined forces and went to find Chu Xiu. They could not afford to offend Sword King City, but they were in Guangdong, which belonged to the Guangdong torture room. They could not afford to offend the Guangdong torture room, right? 2 days later, the representatives of the 9 major forces in Jianghu City gathered at the entrance of the Inspector Hall of Jianghu City, waiting for Chu Xiu's arrival. Although the martial arts forces in Jianghu City had expressed that they would surrender to Chu Xiu, they were still reluctant to deal with Chu Xiu. Therefore, they would never come to the Inspector Hall of Jianghu City if there was nothing important. This was the first time they were so orderly. Several people sat in the meeting hall with anxious looks on their faces. After waiting for a quarter of an hour, Chu Xiu slowly appeared and calmly took a sip of tea on the table. The Luo family's patriarch had a good relationship with Chu Xiu. They had cooperated a lot. Upon seeing this, the Luo family's patriarch hurriedly said, "Official Chu, you still have the time to drink tea here? Those people from Sword King City are causing trouble in Jianghu City. Aren't you going to do something about it?" Chu Xiu put down his teacup and said faintly, "What do you want me to do? You've heard about Lord Wei Jiuduan's attitude. Even I, the inspector, have to cooperate with him. How can I control those people?" The Luo family's patriarch sighed and said, then what should we do? With these people stirring up trouble, our business that has just started to pick up will be wasted. The others also sighed. But at this time, Chu Xiu suddenly said, I can't control them, but you can resist. If Sword King City wants you to seal the city, you can seal it. If they want you to search for people, you can search for them. You haven't been this happy even when I gave you an order. Do you really want to listen to Sword King City? The Luo family's patriarch smiled bitterly and said, but Sword King City is one of the 5 major sword sects. How can a small family like us offend them? Chu Xiu lightly said, so what if they are the 5 major sword sects? Don't forget that this is Guangzhong, not Western Desert Sword King City. Also, don't forget that Sword King City is a righteous sect. Although they are overbearing, they have a good reputation. If you don't listen to Sword King City's orders, would they dare to slaughter you? Everyone glanced at each other. They didn't know if Sword King City would do such a thing, but official Chu Xiu had done such a thing. Didn't Divine Feather Sect and Blackcliff Hall get slaughtered because they didn't listen to your orders? Moreover, Chu Xiu's actions seemed like a scam. It was as if he was a troublemaker. Only a righteous sect like Sword King City could do such a thing. If they ran into someone from the Devil Dao or someone ruthless and unscrupulous like Chu Xiu, then this move would be no different from courting death. Luo family's patriarch cautiously said, Official Chu, are you saying that we're going to resist Sword King City and not listen to their orders? But what if Sword King City really attacks us? Chu Xiu stood up and said coldly, you're a martial arts faction of the Guangzhong region and a martial arts faction under the protection of the Guangzhong Punishment Hall. If the people of Sword King City really dare to attack you, do you think I'll just stand by and do nothing? Lord Wei Jiuduan once said that although our Guanxi branch has to cooperate with Sword King City, it doesn't mean that Sword King City can act recklessly here. Don't worry, if Sword King City really dares to attack you, they'll be provoking the dignity of Guangzhong torture room. At that time, this matter won't be something that Lord Wei Jiuduan can suppress. The headquarters will be alarmed. Seeing that Luo family's patriarch and the others were still hesitating, Chu Xiu couldn't help but snort coldly and said, in any case, I've already given you the idea. Whether you follow it or not is up to you. If Sword King City disrupts our business, I'll only lose 20%, but you'll lose everything. Luo family's patriarch and the others glanced at each other. In the end, Luo family's patriarch gritted his teeth and said, fine, we'll do as official Chu says. In the past, Luo family's patriarch had always been overly cautious. He didn't strive for first or second place and only focused on third or fourth place. Since he was the first to rely on Chu Xiu and got some sweet benefits, he changed his way of thinking. The benefits of being the first to attack were equally great. Chu Xiu looked at everyone present and said in a deep voice, everyone, please rest assured. I won't let Sword King City's people act recklessly here. If I can't even protect my own people, then I'm too useless as an inspector. The other forces cupped their hands and immediately left, preparing to act according to Chu Xiu's plan. Luo family's patriarch was the first to act. At this time, Luo family's patriarch had gone to Jian province to discuss some matters. Luo family's patriarch was in charge of managing Luo family's affairs. At this time, he was cooperating with Sword King City's people to seal the city and search Luo City. After Luo family's patriarch returned, he directly said to Luo Xuanxuan, tell Luo family to open the city gates and call back our clansmen. Chapter 189. Luo Xuanxuan was taken aback by the Luo family's patriarch's words. Old ancestor, won't we offend Sword King City by doing this? The Luo family had always kept a low profile. To put it bluntly, they were a little cowardly. Just by looking at the attitude of the old ancestor of the Luo clan earlier on, it was clear that he was not weak at all. Yet, instead of contending for first and second place, he was only fixated on third and fourth place. However, ever since they joined forces with Chu Xiu, or rather, submitted to Chu Xiu, their patriarch had become more and more radical. Now, he even dared to challenge Sword King City. Was the charm of that official Chu so great that it could make their old ancestor inflate to such an extent? Luo family's old ancestor snorted coldly and said, "Let you go, just go. What nonsense are you spouting? This is Guangzhou, not Sword King City's western desert." Although Luo Xuanquan was still a little worried, he could only follow the Luo family patriarch's instructions and immediately withdraw his men. There were so many small cities in the Jian province prefecture. Naturally, the people from Sword King City would not come one by one. Instead, most of them would be split up and each person would be in charge of a small city. At this time, the person in charge of Luo City was Su Jin, a disciple of the Sword King City who was at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. When he heard that the Luo family had withdrawn all their people, Su Jin immediately rushed to the Luo family's residence in anger. He pushed away the servant who was trying to stop him from reporting and shouted at the Luo family, "What is the meaning of this? Why did you open the gates and evacuate everyone?" The Luo family's old ancestor walked out and said indifferently, "What's wrong? The Sword King City is so broad. Can't I manage my Luo family's people? My Luo clan has so many businesses, so how could we have the time to fool around with your Sword King City?" Su Jin's eyes flashed gloomily. "So your Luo clan intends to defy my Sword King City's orders?" Old ancestor Luo sneered, "Order? Young man, don't be so arrogant. Sword King City's orders? Dare I ask what is the relationship between my Luo clan and your Sword King City? Why should I listen to your orders? Our Luo clan is a martial arts force in Guangzhou. If we want to listen to someone, we should listen to the orders of the Guangzhou torture room. Why would we listen to the orders of the Sword King City? Or do you think this place is the Western Desert? Courting death." A cold light flashed in Su Jin's eyes. As one of the 5 great sword sects, Sword King City's word was law in the Western Desert. If a king of a small country in the western regions dared to offend Sword King City, the disciples of Sword King City would slaughter him like slaughtering a chicken. Their heads would be hung on the city walls, and in the blink of an eye, the small country would have a new ruler. In such an environment, the cultivators of Sword King City had developed an overbearing character. Now, in the Central Plains, a small family like the Luo family actually dared to disrespect them. If this wasn't courting death, then what was? As his voice fell, Su Jin unsheathed the long sword in his hand. The deep and cold sword intent condensed into frost in midair, and the ice-blue sword aura exploded with a loud bang, bringing with it a dense chill. At this moment, the great ancestor of the Luo clan was also secretly complaining. He had listened to Chu Xiu's words to challenge Sword King City, but he didn't expect the cultivators of Sword King City to really attack him at the slightest disagreement. The great ancestor of the Luo clan was also at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. In the face of this sword, he quickly retreated and slammed his palms together, condensing all the gang qi in his body into his palms and slamming them down. However, the extremely powerful icy sword aura directly shattered the power of his palms. When the sword aura reached him, he used almost all of his strength to block Su Jin's sword. However, the icy sword aura had already entered his body and hovered in his meridians, causing him to feel as if he was being pricked by needles whenever he used his spiritual qi. A look of horror appeared in the eyes of the great ancestor of the Luo clan. Were the cultivators from Sword King City really this powerful? The great ancestor of the Luo clan was also at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence, but it took him so much effort to block one of his attacks. If they really fought, he would probably be defeated in less than 10 moves. At the thought of this, the great ancestor of the Luo clan became determined. Seeing that Su Jin was about to make a move, the great ancestor of the Luo clan withdrew his aura and put on a look that said, "You people from Sword King City bully others with your power. A small family like my Luo clan naturally doesn't dare to fight back, nor do we have the power to. Come on, kill I and the people of my Luo clan if you can. Let the whole martial arts world see how tyrannical and cruel you people are, killing innocent people. How dare you call yourself a righteous sect? You said that you're going to capture the demonic cultivators of the Ghost King sect, but now you're attacking innocent people like us. What's the difference between you and those demonic cultivators of the Ghost King sect? Su Jin, who had originally planned to make a move, was stunned when he saw the attitude of the great ancestor of the Luo clan. He didn't know what to do. As the saying went, the stubborn were afraid of the unreasonable, and the unreasonable were afraid of the reckless. Now that the Luo family patriarch was acting as though he didn't care about his life, Su Jin was truly frightened. If this was the Western Desert, the great ancestor of the Luo clan would simply be courting death. However, this was Guangzhou, and they were the Central Plains warriors. Su Jin was somewhat uncertain. If he really killed the great ancestor of the Luo clan, wouldn't it anger the Guangzhou torture room? Would it affect the reputation of Sword King City? He was only an ordinary disciple of Sword King City, so he had no idea what to do. When the great ancestor saw the hesitation on Su Jin's face, he was overjoyed. Chu Xiu was right. Righteous sects cared a lot about their reputation. This was Guangzhou, and Sword King City couldn't cover the sky with one hand. Therefore, they didn't dare to make a move. However, before the great ancestor could celebrate for long, he heard a cold voice. My Sword King City has never been threatened by others. Trying to use reputation to bind my Sword King City is simply a joke. I dare say that the people of the Ghost King sect are in Luo City. Your Luo clan has opened the city gates and retreated. You're clearly deliberately letting them go. The Luo clan dared to collude with evil cultivators like the Ghost King sect, so they should be treated as equally guilty. My Sword King City will eliminate the Luo clan to uphold justice. Gu Jianglu walked in from outside the Luo clan with a gloomy expression. He was the sword instructor of Sword King City's Battle Sword Hall. He was responsible for teaching many disciples and could be considered the backbone of Sword King City. He wasn't the kind of person who only knew how to practice the sword. The Luo clan dared to play petty tricks with Sword King City. They were thinking too much. Gu Jianglu unsheathed his long sword. Beneath the fiery red scabbard was a long sword that seemed to be flowing with magnificent lava. The entire long sword emitted a scorching heat. The blade was resplendent and transparent, surging with heat. This was Gu Jiangliu's sword. His sword was called Flaming River, and the sword Dao he cultivated was also Flaming River. The Luo clan is guilty of colluding with evil cultivators. As soon as his voice fell, Gu Jianglu seemed to have turned into a roaring flaming river. The sword momentum in his hand roared, carrying endless heat waves and scarlet astral energy. It was incomparably majestic. Sword King City wouldn't do something like exterminating an entire clan, at least not in the Central Plains. Sword King City also cared about its reputation. They didn't feel any pressure killing people from the small countries in the western regions. Although Sword King City was located in the Western Desert, its disciples were also from the Central Plains. They naturally had a sense of superiority when facing people from the small countries in the western regions. How could foreign barbarians be considered human? However, if Sword King City really did something like this in the Central Plains, they would inevitably be condemned by some righteous sections. At the very least, their reputation would be tarnished. However, it didn't mean that he would let the Luo clan's patriarch off. The dignity of Sword King City wasn't something that just any Tom, Dick, or Harry could casually provoke. In the face of Gu Jiangliu's sword, the Luo clan's patriarch's eyes showed a touch of despair. The swordsmanship instructor of Sword King City represented the elites of the 4 major sword halls of Sword King City. He couldn't even block an ordinary warrior in the 3 flower at one's prominence realm, so how could he block Gu Jianglu now? But at that moment, a burst of primary energy rang out and a figure suddenly appeared in front of the Luo family patriarch. The pitch-black blade of light looked as if it had been slashed out from hell, bringing with it boundless hatred and a will to die. The devil's saber of Avicii, the gates of hell. At this time, Chu Xiu, dressed in black, had black hair fluttering in the wind. His whole body was surrounded by a layer of frightening black mist of devil chi. The red sleeve blade was dyed pitch black, and his eyes had become pitch black without the slightest emotion. This was the second of the 3 cuts of Avicii. In the face of an expert in the 5 chis collecting in the origin realm, Chu Xiu gave up probing and directly attacked with all his strength. The pitch-black and terrifying devil blade collided with Gu Jiangliu's flaming river sword. In the midst of the raging devil qi, the scorching flaming river was barely torn apart, and the power of the sword was offset. After all, there was a difference of 2 realms. It was already not easy for Chu Xiu to block Gu Jiangliu's sword. Moreover, this sword wasn't Gu Jiangliu's full strength. After the attack, Chu Xiu directly formed the inner lion seal to suppress his body. Only then did he manage to completely suppress the power of the 3 cuts of Avicii. When Chu Xiu's eyes regained clarity, he looked at Gu Jianglu and sneered. Sword King City is so powerful and domineering. You say that whoever colludes with the devil path is colluding with the devil path. It seems that Sword King City is the leader of the righteous path. I'm afraid that even the Great Guangming Temple and Longhu Mountain Celestial Master Mansion are not as powerful and domineering as Sword King City. Gu Jianglu looked at Chu Xiu and didn't respond. His eyes first showed a touch of shock. Just now, his sword was aimed at the Luo family's great ancestor, so he didn't use his full strength. If he had to use his full strength to deal with a 3-flower realm warrior from a small family, it would be a little too embarrassing for him. Even so, Chu Xiu was in the physical invulnerability realm. It was a little too terrifying for him to block his sword with the power of 2 realms higher. Previously, Lin Kaiyun was somewhat unconvinced that Chu Xiu's position on the Longhu list was higher than his. He even secretly told him that when things were over, he would definitely challenge Chu Xiu and kick Chu Xiu to the back. However, from Gu Jiangliu's point of view, Lin Kaiyun's plan was probably going to fail. Chapter 190. Gu Jianglu was still somewhat shocked by Chu Xiu's strength, but he wouldn't have thought this way if he had seen Chu Xiu resist the Sinful Branch Lord's attack. Even when facing the Sinful Branch Lord, a great expert at the oneness of heaven and man realm, Chu Xiu was confident that he could resist the divine Black Claw with the Duguin of the fast and slow 9 words formula, let alone Gu Jianglu, who hadn't reached the oneness of heaven and man realm. Looking at Chu Xiu, Gu Jianglu threw away the messy thoughts in his mind and said coldly, Chu Xiu, do you want to protect the Luo family? I saw that your saber strike was extremely evil. It was simply a demonic cultivation method. I now suspect that you are also colluding with the Ghost King sect. Otherwise, why didn't you cooperate with my Sword King City search? Chu Xiu said coldly, it's not up to your Sword King City to decide whether I colluded with the Ghost King sect or not. I only know that you are now trying to commit murder in my Guangzhong region. My Guangzhong torture room can't turn a blind eye to this matter. Lord Wei only asked us to cooperate with you in searching for clues about the Ghost King sect's demonic cultivators. He didn't say that you can run amok in the Guangzhong region. If your Sword King City people dare to make a move today, I'll report this matter to Lord Guan. At that time, I'll have your sect master personally come to the Guangzhong region to collect us. You dare? Gu Jianglu shouted. Chu Xiu took a step forward and said in a deep voice, see if I dare or not. Gu Jianglu felt somewhat helpless after seeing Chu Xiu's attitude. He didn't even care about Wei Jiuduan, a disciplinary officer, let alone a small inspector like Chu Xiu. But the problem was that they were in the Guangzhong region, and he didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Moreover, Sword King City still had secrets, so he couldn't make a big deal out of it. Looking deeply at Chu Xiu, Gu Jianglu said in a cold voice, very good. The Jianghu constables of the Guangzhong region are really unyielding. But you'd better not leave the Guangzhong region for the rest of your life. Chu Xiu sneered and ignored Gu Jiangliu's threat. He spoke as if the entire world, with the exception of Guangzhong, was his Sword King City's territory. He was overconfident. After saying that, Gu Jianglu couldn't do anything and could only leave with his men. After Sword King City's people left, Luo family's ancestor sighed in relief. He looked at Chu Xiu with a bitter smile and said, Official Chu, I won't trust you anymore. That scene was too scary. My old bones still want to live for a few more years. Chu Xiu said indifferently, what are you afraid of? Aren't you standing right here and living well? Patriarch Luo said helplessly, he is alive, but he almost died. You saw it just now. That Gu Jianglu really wanted to kill him. Moreover, even if he didn't kill me, being scared a few times isn't something that I can bear. I'm getting old, so I don't dare to torment myself like this anymore. Chu Xiu patted Patriarch Luo's shoulder and said, don't worry. With me here, those people from Sword King City won't be able to touch you. This matter will be over soon. Everything will go on as usual. Patriarch Luo still had some confidence in Chu Xiu's words. After all, Chu Xiu's strength was clear for all to see. Patriarch Luo already knew that official Chu wasn't the kind of person who could be measured by a simple realm. He knew this from the moment he killed Jiang family's ancestor. However, Patriarch Luo hadn't seen Chu Xiu go all out, so he didn't have a general impression of Chu Xiu's strength. It wasn't until now that he realized how terrifying Chu Xiu was. It was like a blade strike that opened the gates of hell. It was extremely evil. It could actually contend against an expert 2 realms above him. Moreover, Patriarch Luo wasn't confident that he could take on Chu Xiu's blade strike. However, Patriarch Luo still felt a little strange. What did Chu Xiu's last words mean? Was the matter about to end? Had the people from Ghost King sect been found? It would be better to resolve this matter as soon as possible. During this time, the Jian province had been in a mess and had suffered heavy losses. However, Patriarch Luo's guess was correct. Chu Xiu had indeed found some information about the people from Ghost King sect. However, he had only found some clues about a small portion of them. Moreover, he didn't intend to share them. 2 days later, in the middle of the night, in Jian province's Wen city, an azure-robed cultivator with a dull expression walked out of a medicine shop. He carried a large pile of spirit herbs and quietly walked into a remote inn. After entering the inn, the azure-robed cultivator rubbed his head and directly peeled off his face, revealing an incomparably pale face like that of a dead person. Then, his body twisted and the layers of skin were twisted off, revealing a skinny body. His entire person had actually grown a size taller. After changing into a black robe, the cultivator carried the herbs and spirit herbs he had bought from the medicine shop and left the city under the cover of the night. This martial artist was the martial artist from the Ghost King sect who had fought with Chu Xiu in Linjiang City. No one would have thought that after the Lu family of Wen City was exterminated, the Ghost King sect martial artist would actually appear in Wen City. In fact, during this time, the people from Ghost King sect had been scattered all over the Jian province's small cities. They were collecting spirit herbs and refining pills in order to recover from their injuries as soon as possible. Fortunately, they could escape from Guangzhou before the people from Sword King City could find them. These cultivators from the Ghost King sect were proficient in many evil methods. Previously, they skinned people and extracted their brains to refine this kind of human skin mask that could cover their entire body. Moreover, they could also use the other party's brain to refine a potion that could completely conceal their aura. If it weren't for these strange methods and the fact that their overall strength was stronger than the Jianghu arresters of Jian province, they wouldn't have been able to last until now. After leaving the city, the cultivator from the Ghost King sect went directly to a small, run-down temple outside the city. After a while, another 3 people arrived. However, only one of them was a physical invulnerability expert while the other 2 were inner invulnerability experts. Seeing the other cultivators from the Ghost King sect, the Ghost King sect cultivator at the 3-flower realm asked, "Have you collected all the spirit herbs and spirit herbs?" The 3 of them nodded and said, "Almost. We were afraid of attracting attention, so every time we bought spirit herbs, we bought some other useless spirit herbs to make up the numbers. However, at the moment, those bastards from Sword King City and the people from Guangzhou torture room are looking for us. In addition, the number of outsiders in Jian province has decreased, so we've attracted some attention. If we're not careful, we'll be discovered." The Ghost King sect cultivator at the 3-flower realm nodded and said in a gloomy and hoarse voice, "It's troublesome, but senior brother Ghost Ming's injuries haven't healed yet. Let's hold on for a while longer. If it doesn't work, we'll slaughter a small family and refine more 5-cheese unification pills to help senior brother recover faster. At this point, the Ghost King sect cultivator at the Three-Flower Realm couldn't help but snort and say, those despicable people from Sword King City couldn't defeat senior brother Ghost Ming in a one-on-one fight, so they actually found an expert at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm and launched a sneak attack. Otherwise, senior brother Ghost Ming wouldn't have been injured so badly. At this moment, a voice suddenly came. Are all the diabolism martial artists so naive? Can a martial artist's matter be called a sneak attack? Whether it's the righteous or diabolism, of course, they only care about the results, not the process. Who is it? Come out. The Ghost King sect cultivator at the Three-Flower Realm was suddenly shocked. He was being followed, and he didn't even notice. Chu Xiu's figure slowly walked out of the darkness, which shocked the Ghost King sect cultivator. Chu Xiu. It's you. However, seeing that Chu Xiu was alone, the Ghost King sect cultivator couldn't help but sneer and say, you want to catch us all by yourself? You're courting death. The Ghost King sect cultivator at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence still had a vivid memory of Chu Xiu. Last time in Linjiang City, when Chu Xiu fought with him, he was actually suppressed by a physical invulnerability realm martial artist like him, who was at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. This had already shocked him. Among those who were chasing them was Lin Kaiyun, the wind and cloud sword of the Sword King City's younger generation. However, even Lin Kaiyun didn't have this kind of strength. However, a physical invulnerability expert was still a physical invulnerability expert. Although he was suppressed last time, it was only because Chu Xiu had caught him off guard and used a technique to restrain him. If they really fought, it was still unknown who would win. Moreover, the last time he escaped was because he was afraid that the other Guangzhong torture room martial artists would catch up and surround him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so scared when facing a physical invulnerability expert. Right now, Chu Xiu was alone, while they had 4 people on their side. Although they weren't as strong as Chu Xiu, it was enough to besiege and harass him. Looking at the aggressive people, Chu Xiu said calmly, you don't have to be so nervous. Think about it carefully. If I really wanted to chase you, I could have brought the elites of the Guangzhong torture room here today. You've seen the strength of the Jianghu constables of the Guangzhong torture room. As long as I bring a few people here, you won't be able to escape even if you're at the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. The martial artist from the Ghost King sect asked with a serious expression, then what do you mean? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, it's very simple. I want to make a deal with the people of the Ghost King sect. However, this deal isn't up to you. I want to talk to your senior brother Gui Ming. You want us to take you to senior brother Gui Ming? The eyes of the Ghost King sect martial artist flashed with a cold light. Right now, the strongest and most prestigious person in the Ghost King sect was senior brother Gui Ming. If something happened to senior brother Gui Ming, not only would they lose their strongest combat power, but the remaining people of the Ghost King sect would also fall apart. Chu Xiu said calmly, don't be so nervous. I'm just going with you alone. No one else is following me. There should be a few people left in the Ghost King sect who have reached the Three-Flower Realm at one's prominence. Why are you so careful when facing a physical invulnerability expert like me? Moreover, this is the last chance for the Ghost King sect. You've seen the actions of the Sword King City. The more they investigate, the stricter they are. Who knows when they'll directly investigate you? Chapter 191. Chu Xiu's words caused the Ghost King sect's warrior to hesitate. He really couldn't understand Chu Xiu now. He didn't know what this person in front of him was trying to do. Previously, Chu Xiu was still carrying out his duty in the Guangzhong torture room to hunt them down. Now, Chu Xiu actually turned around and wanted to cooperate with them. What kind of trick was this? The Ghost King sect's warrior couldn't understand. However, he still asked cautiously, tell me first, what exactly are you going to trade with the Ghost King sect? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, the person in charge of the Ghost King sect now isn't you. What's the point of me telling you? Take me to your senior brother. Only he is qualified to make decisions. What did you say? The Ghost King Sect's warrior's eyes suddenly showed a trace of anger. Chu Xiu said indifferently, don't be angry, this is just the truth. There is only one chance, the choice is yours. Take me to your senior brother and we'll talk about cooperation. If you refuse, then I'll leave directly and cooperate with the Sword King City to kill the Ghost King Sect. Moreover, you've seen my strength. With just the few of you, don't even think about keeping me here. After hearing Chu Xiu's words, the Ghost King Sect's warrior thought for a long time, then gritted his teeth and said, fine, I'll take you there. However, although he said he would take Chu Xiu there, he still let the other Ghost King Sect's disciples patrol around to see if anyone had followed them and to clean up their traces. The Ghost King Sect's people were hiding in a very secluded place. Most of them wore human skin masks and hid in a small city in the Jianghu prefecture. They had skinned enough people, enough for them to change their identities several times a day. In addition, they had concealed their auras to the extreme. Even the Jianghu constables of the Guangzhong torture room couldn't catch them. However, the Ghost King Sect's strongest person, Gui Ming, didn't enter the small city. Instead, he hid in a small valley. He was injured and couldn't move for a long time. This way, he would be easily discovered in the city. Therefore, they temporarily hid in this small valley to recuperate, leaving the Ghost King Sect's warriors in the city to kill them and rob their internal organs, then secretly purchasing some elixirs to refine the 5-cheese unification pill to recuperate. When the warrior from the Ghost King Sect arrived in front of the valley, 2 warriors from the Ghost King Sect in the realm of 3 flowers at once prominence emerged from the darkness. They pointed at Chu Xiu and asked warily, who is he? Gui Xian, are you crazy? You actually brought outsiders here? Gui Xian hurriedly replied, he's the Guangzhong torture room's Jianghu prefecture's patrol envoy, Chu Xiu. He says that he's here to make a deal with senior brother. He came alone, and didn't follow anyone else. The other 2 3-flower realm martial artists looked at Chu Xiu and couldn't help but feel relieved when they saw that he was only in the physical invulnerability realm. A martial artist in the physical invulnerability realm wouldn't be able to cause much trouble here. They could do whatever they wanted to Chu Xiu. However, they had never seen Chu Xiu's strength. Once the binding seal of the formation formula was used, his speed would explode to the extreme, and he would be able to move unhindered within a perimeter. Even if he was facing a 5-cheese unification realm martial artist at his peak, Chu Xiu was confident that he could escape, let alone a martial artist in the 5-cheese unification realm who was seriously injured. Wait here first. I'll go inform senior brother. After a while, the warrior from the Ghost King Sect came out, looked at Chu Xiu, and said, go in, senior brother is waiting for you inside. Chu Xiu followed the warrior from the Ghost King Sect into the valley. In fact, there weren't many people inside, only 5 warriors in the innate realm waiting on the side. As for the senior brother of the Ghost King Sect, Gui Xian, the 5-cheese unification realm martial artist, also somewhat exceeded Chu Xiu's expectations. Previously, Chu Xiu thought that Gui Xian must be an old man. After all, Gui Xian didn't look young. However, Gui Xian was actually very young. He looked like he was in his 30s. He was handsome, but his pale face and scarlet eyes were slightly evil. At this time, Chu Xiu could feel that Gui Xian's strength was very unstable. It was jumping back and forth between the 5-cheese unification realm and the 3 flowers at one's prominence realm. Obviously, his injury hadn't been completely healed. Are you Chu Xiu? Gui Xian asked in a low and hoarse voice. Chu Xiu cupped his hands and said, that's right. This time, I'm here to discuss the matter of cooperation with everyone. Gui Xian frowned and said, cooperation? You are the inspector of the Guangzhong torture room. You were searching for people from the Ghost King Sect in the outside world. Now you are talking about cooperation with me. What do you mean? Chu Xiu said indifferently, in this world, there are no eternal enemies, nor are there eternal friends. Everything depends on benefits. Previously, people from the Ghost King sect killed people in my Jianghu prefecture's territory and affected my business. Naturally, I had to search for you. However, the arrogance of the Sword King city has affected more of my business. That's why I came to you for cooperation. Gui Xian glanced at Chu Xiu and said, since you said cooperation, how do you intend to cooperate? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, it's very simple. The Sword King city knows that you haven't recovered from your injury, so they are hunting you. However, I can secretly give you the spiritual medicines you need. You don't have to buy these things in secret. Once you've recovered, you can set up a trap to lure the Sword King city's people. Finally, you can ambush and kill them. Then you can easily leave Guangzhou. Right, you don't just want to kill the Sword King city's people. You also want to lure the Shang prefecture's inspector, Wei Hanshan, and kill him as well. Gui Xian frowned and said, Wei Hanshan is also an inspector of the Guangzhou torture room like you. Why do you want to kill him? Also, how can I believe that you're telling the truth? Chu Xiu said indifferently, someone is blocking my path, so I naturally have to get rid of him. It's precisely because we're both inspectors of the Guangzhou torture room that I can't make a move against him. As for whether I'm telling the truth or not, you just have to send someone to inquire about it and you'll know. Everyone in the Jianghu prefecture knows that I don't get along with Wei Hanshan. It's not the first time we've clashed. Wei Hanshan won't let me off if he has the chance. There's also the Sword King city's people. I even fought with them during the day yesterday. You can easily find out about this if you go to Luocheng. Gui Xian looked deeply at Chu Xiu, then suddenly revealed a mocking smile and said, you so-called righteous sects are only a so-so. My Ghost King sect kills people to refine pills and refine ghosts. We know that we're not good people. We also know that we won't have a good ending in this life. However, we're not as hypocritical as you righteous sects. You obviously want to kill the other party, but you don't dare to do it openly. You only dare to plot in the dark. Chu Xiu's expression was a bit strange. To be honest, he has been in Jianghu for a long time. Some people said that he was ruthless and scheming, but this was the first time someone put him on the side of righteous sects. However, Chu Xiu didn't say much. He just said indifferently, what is righteous sects? What is devil sects? It's just a far-fetched label added by outsiders. How can there be so many saints before benefits? In this world, only Chu Kuanga has appeared in thousands of years. Moreover, I have never thought of myself as a so-called righteous sect. Everyone, have you thought about it? Do you agree to my conditions? Gui Xian waved his hand and said, I agree to your conditions. However, don't try to play any dirty tricks. Otherwise, you won't want to know the consequences. Chu Xiu shrugged and nodded indifferently, don't worry. Those who have cooperated with me, Chu Xiu, will not suffer losses. If you don't believe me, you can look at the forces in Jianghu. If they didn't cooperate with me, how could they earn so much? Gui Xian snorted and asked someone to give Chu Xiu the list of herbs they needed. Then, he let him leave. At the same time, they gave Chu Xiu a strange white bone formation plate. In the future, they would have to use this thing to communicate. They didn't plan to stay in this valley anymore. The people of the Ghost King sect were cautious. Since Chu Xiu had been here, they had to be on guard against Chu Xiu. If Chu Xiu was really trying to trick them and left with the people of Sword King City, they would be in danger. After leaving the valley of the Ghost King sect, Chu Xiu directly returned to the inspector hall of the Jianghu prefecture. At this time, the Ghost Hand King and the others were waiting for Chu Xiu. Seeing Chu Xiu return, the Ghost Hand King quickly asked, Sir, have you contacted the people of the Ghost King sect? Chu Xiu nodded and took out the list of herbs needed by the Ghost King sect. He said, take a look. Are these the materials for refining the 5-Qi unification pill? The Ghost Hand King nodded after reading it and said, yes, not only are the materials for refining the 5 Qis gathering pill, but there are also some materials for refining the pills needed by warriors in the three flowers at one's prominence realm. There are also some special pills of the Ghost King sect. Chu Xiu nodded. His eyes narrowed as he said, Ghost Hand King, what method did you use to drug your cheat master from the Ghost King sect? Can you use it in these pills? It's best to let them recover before the poison takes effect. Upon hearing this, the Ghost Hand King and the others were stunned. He asked in surprise, Sir, didn't you want to cooperate with the people of the Ghost King sect? Why do you want to poison them now? They knew that Chu Xiu had decided to cooperate with the Ghost King sect to trick the people of Sword King City. The Ghost Hand King and the others thought this was normal. The people of Sword King City were so overbearing, and Wei Hanshan was always looking for trouble for Chu Xiu. With Chu Xiu's character, it would be strange if he could tolerate them. Moreover, if he did not get rid of them as soon as possible, the foundation that Chu Xiu had painstakingly laid in Jianghu Prefecture would be wasted. Du Guangzhong and the others were also shocked by Chu Xiu's boldness, but they had all seen how ruthless Chu Xiu could be. Now that they had boarded Chu Xiu's pirate ship, there was no way for them to get off. They could only obediently follow Chu Xiu to the end. However, from what Chu Xiu said, it seemed that he was going to trick both sides. You're tuning into the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.